across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
What an absolute day of drama. My goodness. Robert Jenrick has been sacked by Kemi Badenoch. We'll speak to the chairman of the Conservative Party in just a second here on Talk Drive. There's so much reaction coming into the studio. I can see the phones going already. Whatever your thoughts on it, you let me know. 0344 499 1000. The Prime Minister's reacted. Nigel Farage will be speaking in about half an hour's time. We're going to take that live here on Talk. You'll get every moment of that as it happens. Is he going to unveil Robert Jenrick? What's going to happen? We don't quite know, so we'll see what happens. We'll speak to Kevin Hollingreck in a second, as I say, the chairman of the Conservative Party. Also, the West Midlands police chief, still in a job. Apparently he's digging in. He says that he's going to stay there. He's going to see out the week and hopes it will, quote-unquote, die down, apparently. Unbelievable. Lord Walney, the former government political violence advisor, will speak to us, as will a member of the Home Affairs Select Committee, Dr. Peter Prinsley, who's been very, very critical of this. Ryan Saby from The Sun is going to give us all his analysis of the day's events. John Redwood, Colonel Simon Diggins talking about over 65s being told to prepare for war, and the Danes as well in Greenland and all that's going on there. We'll get the sport. We'll get Nigel Evans's reaction, the former Deputy Speaker. Ofsted, the schools body, inspection body to investigate a school that blocked a Jewish MP's visit as well. There's so much coming up between now and 7 o'clock. I strongly suspect it will be dominated by Robert Jenrick defecting to Reform UK. What's your view on that and anything else that we're talking about or should be talking about? Let me know your thoughts. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. Send me a WhatsApp voice note, less than a minute please, on that main number. You can send me a WhatsApp text message on the main number, or give me a ring on the main number, which is 0344 499 1000. So much to discuss between now and 7 here on Talk Drive. Maybe you've just got in your car, maybe you've heard a little bit about this Robert Jenrick thing. He was, of course, the Shadow Justice Secretary, but let me bring you right up to date. Let's have a look first at why Kemi Badenoch, the leader of the opposition, leader of the Conservative Party, fired Robert Jenrick.
This morning, I removed the Conservative whip from Robert Jenrick after dismissing him from the Shadow Cabinet. I was very sorry to be presented with clear, irrefutable evidence, not just that he was preparing to defect, but he was planning to do so in the most damaging way possible to the Conservative Party and his shadow cabinet colleagues. It is my responsibility to protect our party, and faced with that information, I took the only decision that any responsible leader.
Well, shortly after that, the Prime Minister Keir Starmer gave his reaction.
My question is, why did it take so long? Jenrick's been making toxic comments to try and divide our country for months and months and months. And it's only now, when he's on the verge of defecting to Reform, that Badenoch gets round to sacking him. So that's weakness on her part. There's a bigger story here, because we're seeing a flood of Tory politicians, ex-politicians, politicians going across to Reform because they know that the Tory party is a sinking ship.
The Prime Minister there apparently not knowing how to pronounce Badenoch. Let's see what Robert Jenrick was accused of after defecting to Reform. Their leader, Nigel Farage, has spoken about this. He's speaking again at 4:30. We'll bring that to you live here on Talk Drive, but let's see his reaction earlier today. Nigel Farage.
I'm very surprised that this news is broken.
Are you, though?
Well, I never reveal private conversations with anybody. I'm going to say that I've had conversations with a number of very senior Conservatives over the course of the last week, over the course of the last month. Of course I've talked to Robert Jenrick. Was I on the verge of signing a document with him? No. But have we had conversations? Yes.
So he was considering leaving the Conservatives and joining Reform UK?
I think virtually every Conservative is considering leaving the Conservatives, yes.
Nigel Farage there. Well, let's speak to the chairman of the Conservative Party, Kevin Hollingreck MP. Kevin, thank you for joining me today.
Okay.
Did this come as a total bolt from the blue to you? Has this been coming for a few days? Just talk us through it.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised what Rob was planning, plotting in secret, and what we received last night was damning. The information that we received, it was clear, it was compelling, it was irrefutable, and as Kemi said earlier, it wasn't just the fact he was going to defect or planning to defect. It was the fact he was going to do it in a very damaging way, which would damage the party's prospects. And we're here to improve the party's prospects, as we are doing. And so are tens of thousands of volunteers up and down the country. I think it's disloyal, it's treacherous. I think Kemi did absolutely the right thing in sacking him.
Are you happy that everybody else in the shadow cabinet is not a traitor but a faithful this afternoon?
Yes, I believe so, and quite right too. They see the progress we're making. Kemi, more and more people are seeing Kemi, and they like what they see. She's the most authentic politician in politics, the most authentic leader in politics. She's doing a great job. People are recognising that. The direction of travel is good. The morale within the parliamentary party and the wider party is good, and I speak to those people every single day. So I don't expect that at all. I think this was not about the direction of travel of the party. Rob and Kemi agreed on much. I think it is about Rob's personal ambition, and the better Kemi did, actually, made it more likely that he would defect, because it meant there wouldn't be that top job available, which I think Rob has always hankered after. So that's where this came from, I believe. But Rob's motivations, you'd need to ask him about. But the reality is the evidence was clear. Kemi is a strong person, did the right thing.
You said the evidence against him was clear, compelling and irrefutable. Does that include a resignation speech that was perhaps left on a photocopier, or screenshots of that?
I can't tell you, Peter, I'm afraid. Well, I can, because as you know, as a journalist, we need to protect our sources, of course. But I can tell you it was somebody who was close to Rob Jenrick's inner circle. So he was from a trusted source. But then all you have to do is read what we read to know that his position within the Conservative Party was completely untenable.
This was brutal and swift. Definitely the correct course of action, and is it the course of action that could hypothetically happen again? We've heard Nigel Farage there saying that so many Conservatives, you've had 23 of them, only the second sitting MP though, who appears to be defecting to Reform UK.
I think it was the right thing to do. Anybody who's disloyal to that degree, it's just you can't have those people within your party, and we've had this trouble before in the Conservative Party, of course, people not be united behind their leader. Kemi's been very clear that will not happen under her leadership. This disloyalty was clear, it was treacherous, and Kemi acted. So I think totally the right thing to do. And no, I don't think that any other colleagues think like how Rob was thinking, because
you don't know that though, do you? I mean, this came as a bolt from the blue to you in the last 24, 48 hours. Okay, he's perhaps not been the most loyal to Kemi Badenoch. Would you go as far as to call him a traitor to the Conservative cause?
Well, listen, he's been disloyal, he's been treacherous, and I think that's as far as I would go in terms of language. I think the point being, I think Rob Jenrick's position is quite unique. Obviously went into a contest that in the end he was up against Kemi Badenoch. He lost that contest fair and square. It was a decisive result, but he's never been happy with that result. And I think that's what's ended up. That's why this has ended up in this place. It really is.
You say he's never been happy with that result. I agree with you on that. We've seen that demonstrated in lots of different ways, I think. I just wonder, when he was inside the shadow cabinet, did you fully trust him?
Well, I was getting on well with Rob, and I trust him in terms of if he stayed in his lane, in his job that he was doing.
But he often didn't, though.
Just a secretary. Well, you know, and conversations happen, of course, within our party, but we like to try and keep those things internal.
So had he been already slapped down? Had he been already slapped down at various points for straying outside his lane, Kevin?
I don't want to go into that, Peter, if you don't mind. I don't think those kind of private conversations should stay private. But it's fair to say that, you know, we make sure that people are doing their job and not trying to do somebody else's job or another job. And that's an important part of what I do as the party chairman, and what Kemi does, and what the chief whip does. But what we saw over the last day or so is damning evidence. It had to be a case that person no longer was fit to be within the Conservative Party. So Kemi has sacked him as Shadow Justice Secretary, and we've suspended the Conservative whip.
It's only Thursday, Kevin Hollingreck, and we're in a situation where the former Chancellor of the Exchequer, no longer a sitting Conservative MP, has joined 22 other former Conservative MPs. You had Danny Kruger, sitting MP, very senior person in Boris Johnson's number 10. He was his political secretary, very, very senior role. You've got Robert Jenrick, the Shadow Justice Secretary, defecting to Reform UK. Do you honestly think that Kemi Badenoch is stronger coming out of this?
Well, yes, I do. I think she's strong generally. I mean, this isn't the kind of thing you want to be taking your time up with. We want to be getting on and challenging the government, which we're doing effectively. All those U-turns.
It's always going to be a distraction, isn't it? You're always going to be looking over your shoulder, are you not, Kevin? If you've got someone who sat at the top table, at the shadow cabinet table, been a contender for leadership of your party, who's a turncoat, well then lots of other people could be too. We've seen that time and time again.
I think the situation with Rob Jenrick was pretty unique. But the point is, most people within our party recognise the progress we are making. Kemi, according to the polls, is the most trusted leader amongst all the major party leaders. We're the most trusted party on the economy. And I think certainly when you get into general elections, as we will for a few years yet, that will be very, very important. So I think we will be the leading in the polls and hopefully leading in that general election result, because people will want a strong leader and they'll want a party they trust on the economy. And we tick both those boxes. So I think we're going in the right direction. I think some individuals may not, and that may have something to do with their own personal ambition rather than their ambition for the party or the country.
I know Nick Timothy is taking over that role as Shadow Justice Secretary. Just before you go, Kevin, just briefly, I wonder if you could tell me your thoughts on the Chief Constable of West Midlands Police, Craig Guilford, and the fact that he is still in a job at the moment.
Well, his position is untenable as well, isn't it? I cannot believe that man must have the thickest skin on the planet. I mean, he is banged to rights, to use that phrase, in terms of misleading members of Parliament about a very, very serious situation.
I mean, if he was a constable, he would have been suspended, wouldn't he?
Totally. He should resign or he should be sacked.
OK, Kevin, thank you. Appreciate you coming on today. That's Kevin Hollingreck, who is the chairman of the Conservative Party. He's also the Conservative MP for Thirsk and Malton. What do you think about this? 0344 499 1000. Keith in Forres says, if Badenoch wants to prove she is decisive, then she should sack and take the whip away from every Tory councillor who's voted to cancel local elections against her demands not to. Rachel says, what a day. I think the Conservatives are totally finished now. I hope Farage makes a deal with Jenrick. I think he will be a valuable asset to the first Reform Cabinet. Peter in Dorset has given me a ring on this, 0344 499 1000. You're welcome to do so too. Peter, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
Hello.
I think this whole thing about Kemi Badenoch and Robert Jenrick basically is all a bit of a red herring, to be honest with you. The situation is that Robert Jenrick has made it very clear over the last couple of years as regards his stance on immigration, and he probably feels that he's got half a chance of getting some of the stuff he's wanting to get implemented eventually by being with Reform. He's going to Reform, and he won't be running as a leader when he gets there, if he's going there. But
Peter, this is a person in Robert Jenrick who I think is a very effective politician, certainly a very effective campaigner in many ways. But he campaigned for Remain, then he's become a Leaver. He was on the sort of One Nation kind of softer side of the Conservative Party. Now he's become pretty hard line on many things. He ran for leadership of the Conservative Party. He didn't get it and has now gone to Reform. Do you trust him?
Well, things are changing very quickly, and the situation in the country is changing very quickly. One of his big stances is with immigration, and if it's going to be a help to this country, that he goes to Reform on that basis. Look, I'll be honest with you, there's not many politicians that we can all say we trust wholeheartedly. Yep. To be honest with you, what goes on behind the scenes and away from the television screen and the public, we don't know half of what goes on. Mm-hmm. So, but we've got to see, if we can see that Robert Jenrick is a great help to the immigration process with Reform, then I think that will be power to Nigel Farage's elbow.
OK, thank you. That's Peter in Dorset there. Paul in Leeds says Badenoch's recent improved popularity is because she has followed Jenrick's right-wing rhetoric. Without him, I wonder if she will continue to gain popularity. Jenrick is a massive plus for Reform UK. He's been in the wrong party for many months already, says Paul in Leeds. Mike in Lincoln says, I think Jenrick is far better suited to Reform UK than being a member of the Lib Dem Light Tory party, and I think Labour are treating it as a good day to bury bad news, and that they're going to bring forward primary legislation to raise the commitment of veterans to the Strategic Reserve till the age of 65. Don't you worry, Mike, we've spotted that story and we are covering it later on with Simon Diggins. Fear not. As a 61-year-old veteran, I don't have any problem with this, as I'm still pretty fit, but many of my former colleagues are far from it, says Mike in Lincoln. Yes, we are not ignoring that story, believe me. Colonel Simon Diggins will give us thoughts on it. And Joanna in Salisbury says, hi Cardi P, Starmer is an idiot. The toxic comments Jenrick was spouting were the truth. He's just reminded us. Kemi has shown us how much stronger she is than Starmer, taking swift, sharp action than Starmer doesn't show with his MPs or in firing the West Midlands Police Chief. There are lots of stories around today. What do you think of all of this? 0344 499 1000. We're going to talk in just a second about that West Midlands Police Chief, Lord Walney, and indeed an MP on the Home Affairs Select Committee, Peter Prinsley, will be with us in a second. Remarkably, Craig Guilford still has a job. What job is Robert Jenrick going to get next? We may well find out at 4:30. The Reform UK press conference coming. We'll bring it to you live here on Talk Drive. Stay with us.
Breaking news this morning revealed that under the Terrorist Act, 242 people were arrested in the year to June of this year.
Something you can indulge in as to all the people who aren't going to prison because, well, there's no prison spaces.
So this is a Talk exclusive we've been looking at.
I said, you take these cuffs off me and speak to me like a human being rather than a common criminal.
You're just left wondering, does these people who lead us actually hate Britain? Yeah. Do they not love our country and everything that we've stood for?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, the Chief Constable of West Midlands Police believes he is unfairly treated, apparently, which seems absolutely astonishing. We'll talk about that in just a second, but I just want to read a couple of tweets that have come in, including from Angela. He says, good afternoon, interviewing Kevin Hollingreck, you'll get plenty of anti-reform UK rhetoric from him, and what I'll say is if Robert Jenrick left a hard copy of a letter on his desk, then it'll be in the Talk studio with you later. Incompetent, a whistleblower or deliberate, what a day. Well, we think someone left something on a photocopier, but we're not too sure. Murpho from Preston says, once the dust is settled, this is good for Reform UK if he joins. Not so sure about Zahawi. Interesting one from Mac Enza as well. Did Jenrick honestly leave a resignation letter on his desk? How was the document obtained? Passed as a hard copy or taken from a computer? Does this disclose criminality? The Tories must complain clean about this. Well, I did ask Kevin Hollingerick. They haven't so far. There are all sorts of theories. Apparently something left on a computer or on a printer. Or a photocopier or some sort of screenshot was given to them. They say it's irrefutable evidence. They won't tell us what it is. I expect there are many journalists out there who will try to find it out. Right then, I want to talk about the West Midlands police and the fact that Craig Guilford unbelievably still has a job. John Woodcock, Lord Walney, is the former government political violence advisor and joins me now. Hi, John.
Hi, Peter. How you doing?
What on earth is going on here? How is this guy still in a job and feeling he's unfairly treated? Seriously, give me a break.
Yeah, it is extraordinary. I haven't seen those comments, but I mean, they will just make people's blood boil. What you're unfairly treated because all the other times that you've obfuscated evidence and given the wrong information to official bodies, you haven't been caught, and so it's so unfair that you've been caught out this time. I mean, let us just remember why this happened. You had the catastrophically wrong decision to exclude the Israeli fans from the game, based on apparently on the many accounts that he tried to give on this, which have proved not to be true, based on intelligence from the Dutch police, which turned out not to exist, based on a match that Maccabi Tel Aviv apparently played with West Ham, which didn't exist. When he was asked about that and whether it had been AI that had done it, he said, no, we don't use AI. They then responded to official requests saying that they don't, for information, saying that they don't use AI. This is not one slip-up. Mm-hmm. It is a catastrophic failure and mistake, and then a sustained attempt to suppress information, and on repeated attempts to give information that was factually not true. So he should be banged to right. Mm-hmm. He shouldn't be in his job anymore, and every moment that he stays in his position is bringing his own force into disrepute, and it's casting a stain on British policing.
On this police and crime commissioner in the area does have the power to at least suspend him, if not sack him. Surely, as a Labour police and crime commissioner, the Prime Minister could attempt to persuade this person to say that actually that he can't wait until the 27th of this month in order to move the process forward.
Well, the police and crime commissioner, Simon Foster, will say that he wants to keep party politics out of it, and that is fair enough. But what I think this man will expose himself to, unless he acts on this quickly, is he will get dragged into this controversy because the evidence is overwhelming now.
John, I've just got apologies to stop you. Robert Jenrick is set to join Reform. Nigel Farage is going to confirm it in about 5 minutes. This is the Times reporting that. Right. We will have to go to that in a second. Just briefly, sure. John, your reaction to that.
My reaction to Robert Jenrick and Reform. Well, it is a very big moment for both parties, and Robert Jenrick has been really effective as a campaigner. Whether you agree with what he's saying or not, he has been streets ahead of much of the rest of his peers in making this case. Now, I think it was a pretty ballsy move by Kemi Badenoch to call him out on this, but I genuinely couldn't call at the moment what is going to happen to both of those parties.
And it'll be absolutely fascinating to see. John, listen, thank you. Sorry the interview's a little bit shorter than I would have liked, but this breaking news, Robert Jenrick set to join Reform UK, Nigel Farage set to confirm that in the next few minutes. We'll bring that to you live, of course. Just a quick word with Dr. Peter Prinsley, MP, who is on the Home Affairs Select Committee to talk about this West Midlands Police Chief refusing to quit. Peter, thank you for joining me this afternoon. I know that perhaps we'll get a longer conversation on another occasion, but I know that the Police and Crime Commissioner in the area is saying that he's going to wait for the process, he's going to wait for your report at the Home Affairs Select Committee. Does he need to do that?
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me on. I don't think that it's really got anything to do with the Home Affairs Select Committee report. I mean, there was a very definite view taken by the Home Secretary in Parliament yesterday, and I would have thought it's quite clear what the Police and Crime Commissioner ought to now do. I mean, either the Police and Crime Commissioner will terminate the contract of the Chief Constable, or the Chief Constable himself could simply resign. It seemed to me that the position of the Police and Crime Commissioner becomes more and more difficult the longer this goes on.
I mean, can the Police and Crime Commissioner just right now say you're sacked? Simon Foster, can he just do that?
I believe he can. I believe that the elected Police and Crime Commissioner has the authority to remove the Chief Constable in a way that the Home Secretary apparently no longer does have that.
So given he's a member...
did say that...
Given he's sorry to interrupt you, but given he's a member of your party, shouldn't the Prime Minister just lift the phone and say, hold on, Simon Foster, local Police and Crime Commissioner, I have no confidence, Home Secretary has no confidence, people on the Home Affairs Select Committee have no confidence, just get this done?
Well, that would be a matter for the Prime Minister, but I honestly don't think this is a political matter. This is a matter of the Home Secretary having expressed a lack of confidence in a chief constable in our second city, and I would have thought that it must be now obvious to everybody what needs to happen.
It is an extraordinary situation, Peter, isn't it, that we have the Chief Constable for the first time in 20 years, a Home Secretary has said that she has no confidence in the head of a major police force. When you were listening to his evidence, are you pretty straightforwardly clear that he was lying?
Well, what I've said is I don't think he was telling the whole story. It seemed to me that he didn't know much of the story, and there was a sort of sense of fluster and bluster that was going on. But, as soon as it became obvious that West Ham match, which appeared in the first paragraph of their first report, didn't actually happen, it discredited pretty much everything else they had to say. And, the Home Affairs Select Committee hasn't actually come to a conclusion yet and won't do for some time. But it is beginning to look very much as if, as the Chief Inspector of Police has said, the Home Affairs Select Committee is very likely to agree that the police simply created some evidence to fit with a decision which had already been made.
Peter, thank you, Dr. Peter Prinsley there. I hope we get a longer conversation on another occasion, but we're just moving to this breaking news, a rapidly developing situation in Westminster. The Times is reporting that Robert Jenrick is set to join Reform UK. Nigel Farage to confirm that in the next few minutes. There'll be a press conference. We'll bring that to you live. In the meantime, Ryan Saby is with us, the Deputy Political Editor and Economics Editor at The Sun. Ryan, is that your understanding that this is going to happen at the press conference?
Yeah, it does seem to be that way because literally, as I speak to you, Peter, Robert Jenrick has tweeted, "It's time for the truth." Now, that can only mean one thing: that the whole what has happened today, the events surrounding today, are going to come to the fore. Robert Jenrick is going to spell out exactly what happened, spell out exactly why Kemi Badenoch took that decision, and also lead to why he's on the verge, poised to join Reform in just a couple of minutes. It is all set up for this 4:30 press conference. None of us had an idea that this was going to happen. This morning, Kemi Badenoch was presented with this evidence. She said she had no decision to make. It was very straightforward to sack him. And Nigel Farage was confronted with that information up in Scotland when he was out campaigning, and we've been waiting all day for Robert Jenrick to say something publicly.
He said absolutely nothing, hasn't he? I mean, you talked about this tweet just a minute ago where he simply says, "It's time for the truth." That could mean a whole lot of different things. Were you surprised at how swift and how brutal this was?
Yeah, I think because there's been rumours for months, several weeks. There's always rumours about who's going to be the latest Conservative MP, maybe Labour MP to join Reform. But the way this happened, and it also shows who holds sort of the whip hand in all of this. Was this a moment of strength for Kemi Badenoch? She was the one who actually sort of had the power play. She was the one who sacked Robert Jenrick. It was all poised for, you know, all of these decisions, whether it's been Danny Kruger, Nadeem Zahawi, all of these have come out the blue. And it's the person who's had the control is the person who's been making the move. Yeah. So we all expected, all these, you know, people in Westminster and those beyond are expecting Robert Jenrick maybe one day to get up on stage to actually make that announcement and be in control of that. But Kemi Badenoch actually seized the initiative and made that decision herself. She said she was confronted with, you know, with evidence. It seemed it may well have been some kind of resignation letter or the like, and she had no decision to make. It was clear cut for her.
Yeah. Just to interrupt you ever so slightly there, Ryan. Just to say the press conference is on the screen right now. As soon as Nigel Farage starts talking, we will bring that to you. Richard Tice there in the front row, Deputy Leader Lee Anderson, the Chief Whip, who was himself a former Conservative. Then he was suspended from that party and sat as an independent, then became a Reform UK MP. Sarah Pochin there as well. I can see some sort of screen is coming up, being set up by one of the technical people. Lots of journalists in that room, including our own here at Talk, who will be asking questions afterwards when they're taken. It looks like a very, very busy room. I can see some of the top brass of the lobby. James Heal, who's often a contributor to our station as well. So Ryan, we're expecting this. It's going to be a big announcement. What do you think it'll mean, and what do you think Jenrick does next? Because there's such a question for Nigel Farage, saying you've got all these big beasts. You've got Nadeem Zahawi this week. You've got people like Zia Youssef, Richard Tice already in your party. You've now got Robert Jenrick, who in theory would be a good shadow chancellor. What does he do? Oh, Farage is coming up. We'll hold that thought. Here is Nigel Farage.
This 4:30 press conference was advertised heavily at the beginning of the week, and I had the full intention today to tell you how absolutely monstrous it is that elections for millions of people all over this country are being cancelled, in some cases for the second year in a row. And whilst it's the Labour government that have opened up this option, it is of course the Conservative Party themselves who've chosen to postpone in 3 counties for the second year in a row. And the holier-than-thou Lib Dems also want a cancellation to go ahead in Cheltenham. So the point of this press conference was to launch a legal paper to show you how serious we were. And I was going to launch a judicial review, but I'm going to save that for a couple of days because 1 or 2 other things appear to have happened this morning. All, I think, predicated around today's 4:30 press conference. Now, I'm not for a moment going to tell you that I'd not been talking to a certain Robert Jenrick for some weeks, some months, as indeed I've been talking to many, many other senior Conservative figures, and incidentally some Labour ones as well. There'll be a Labour defection next week, which you'll all be invited to. But I have been talking to some very senior Conservatives, and the reason is very simple. They all know that after May the 7th, despite whatever attempt there may be at the moment, and yes, of course, Kemi's doing better up against Keir Starmer at PMQs, and talk of a Kemi bounce, and all the rest of it, but the realists know that after May the 7th, the Conservative Party will cease to be a national political party. That is just how serious the situation is. And there are many who genuinely want to realign the sensible centre-right in this country. And they increasingly believe the only way to do that is for Reform to become the dominant party. Now, you may argue already we're the dominant party in the polls. So, yes, I had been talking to Robert Jenrick. I had been talking to many other people as well. You saw one earlier this week, Nadeem Zahawi, a former chairman and indeed Chancellor of the Exchequer. But let me make it absolutely clear that when it leaked out of Robert Jenrick's office that he'd been preparing some notes and thoughts about what he would do, what he would say, how he would play it when he came, he wasn't going to join at 4:30 today. No, I'm sorry, Kemi, you've jumped the gun. You've added up 2 and 2 and made 5. He wasn't going to join today. He wasn't going to join tomorrow. He wasn't going to join next week. In fact, knowing what these negotiations are like, he might not have joined at all. I think on balance, it's 60-40 that he would have done. But you never know until the deal is signed and the hand is shaken. So the Conservative leadership have jumped the gun on this. They've hoofed him out of the party, fearing he would appear today at 4:30 on this platform alongside me. And I've had to think very quickly as to how I should respond to this. And I just want to say thank you to Kemi Badenoch. This is the latest Christmas present I've ever had. The negotiations with Jenrick are over. There's nothing more to be said or to be done. You've handed me on a plate the man that is by far the most popular figure, 60% approval rating on Con Home compared to our own 38. And you've perhaps today really done anything, more than anybody in history, to help realign the centre-right of British politics, which is much needed against a dreadful Labour government and an increasingly worrying extreme left-wing voice in this country. So I can't offer you drinks all round, but I'll buy Kemi lunch next week and say thank you. And on that note, I will welcome Robert Jenrick into this room and into Reform UK. Oh, right. He hasn't changed his mind, has he? We can't find him.
So there's an awkward silence
Is
now.
he coming, Nick?
There's an awkward silence as Robert Jenrick hasn't...
This would be a very funny end of the day, wouldn't it?
quite come into the room yet.
This really would put the tin lid on the whole thing.
There are lots of snappers and cameramen waiting for Robert Jenrick
As you can
to come
tell,
in.
normally, when I unveil defections, it's all perfectly planned. Nothing ever leaks, and I'm known for nothing ever leaking. But this circumstance has been sprung upon us for reasons that were not under my own control, sadly.
This is an extraordinary situation. Lee Anderson and Sarah Pochin, two of the MPs from Reform UK, standing up, looking at the door.
Folks, don't worry. I've just had the thumbs up. He hasn't changed his mind. Kemi hasn't called him and asked him back. Oddly, she never called him in the first place. She left it to the Chief Whip to do so, which I did find very, very odd. But, yeah, as I say, one more point before he comes. There's a lot of speculation in the media about who may or may not defect to us. Are they doing it for their own purposes? Are they of benefit to us? May the 7th, folks, if you're in Parliament, is the deadline. If you're coming to us, do it before May the 7th. We don't want you after that. Let me make that very, very clear to everybody in the room. Here he is, Robert Jenrick. I didn't know where you got to. I wanted you to change your mind. I was getting a bit worried about it, to be honest with you. Here we are, the scrum.
Come on, guys. Both to this one, please, guys.
Okay, yeah.
So all smiles now. All smiles now. Lots of photographs being taken. Robert Jenrick smiling, standing beside Nigel Farage and having those photographs taken. Bit of a media scrum there. Definitely lots of people taking photos on their phones as well as the professional photographers there. Robert Jenrick looking pretty relaxed there, smiling. Nigel Farage pleased as punch to have his man, certainly. And it'll be very interesting to hear what Robert Jenrick says.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Nigel. It's time for the truth. Britain has been in decline. Britain is in decline. From 1970 to 2007, real wages went down by 1/3 every 10 years. Since then, they flatlined. At the turn of the millennium, the average Brit was earning more than twice as much as the average Pole. By 2031, we're on track to be poorer. Outside of London and the southeast, our economy is closer to Bulgaria's than to Germany's. Today, 18 to 30-year-olds are the first Britons to earn less than their parents. Houses cost more here than in any other OECD country. We have the highest energy prices in the developed world. Our heavy industry has more than halved since 2003. Our service sector is exposed to AI. 1 in 5 working Brits are now not working at all. Our debt is the highest it's been since the 60s. Our tax burden, the highest since the 50s. We're spending more on debt interest than on defence and schools combined. In 2012, 1 in 20 people who went to A&E waited more than 4 hours. Now it's 8 times that. 1 in 5 school kids are persistently absent. 93% of crime goes unresolved. The courts are backlogged. The prisons are overflowing. Our army is the smallest it's been since Napoleonic times. 193,000 people have come here on small boats since 2018. Last year, 1 illegal migrant raped a 12-year-old girl in Nuneaton. Terrorists have broken into Britain on small boats. And we're living through the most profound change to our population in our nation's history. Net migration is 100 times higher in the 25 years after 1997 than in the 25 years before it. 1 in 5 in Britain weren't born here. Many are not working or are doing low-paid work. Just 1 in 20 of 2022's migrants were net contributors. Countless communities in less than 25 years have become totally unrecognisable. The police, as we've seen this week, can't even police some of our largest cities. Now, my constituents in Newark feel this decline every day. It's a great historic town. It is the honour of my life to represent it and to represent them in Parliament. They are the best of our country. They are men and women who are getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning, 7 a.m. out the door to work in distribution centres and factories, grafting all week, but finding nothing left over for something nice with the kids on the weekends. Their bills, their taxes are surging. Their money is taken to fund hotels for those here illegally in our country, or the lifestyle of the guy down the road who everyone knows could be working but isn't working. I challenge anyone to argue other than that Britain is completely broken. Those that came before us built a great country, the greatest country in the world, but we are set to lose it. We will, for certain, if this government gets re-elected. A suicidal energy policy, crushing workers to fund scroungers on benefits, unions running our public services, payouts to terrorists, prosecutions of veterans, the bravest of the brave. 900,000 migrants in their first year, 65,000 of them illegally, ending jury trials, cancelling elections, giving away our territory, and 35 billion quid for the privilege. These people run Britain as if they hate it. But whilst this government is accelerating our decline, they didn't begin it. We've had 20 to 30 years of this. And why has it happened? Because the two main parties are rotten. They are no longer fit for purpose. They both broke Britain, and neither can fix it. It's a conclusion about the Conservative Party that has pained me to reach, because I've been a member of this party since I was 16 years old. I've served it for most of my adult life. I have countless good friends in the party, not least my own members in Newark. They are the most decent, patriotic people I know. And I respect, I cherish the party's contribution to our country. The party of Pitt and Peel, of Churchill and Thatcher. But our country is in a precarious, dangerous position. And my first loyalty, our first loyalty, must be to our country. Turning it around will require each and every one of us to speak the truth. And not just to speak it, but to act. What's the truth? Both Labour and the Conservatives broke Britain, and both are now dominated by those without the competence or the backbone needed to fix it. Both parties, if judged by their own actions, are committed to a set of ideas that have failed and are failing Britain. Labour started mass migration, but the Conservatives ramped it up. After 2019, the Conservatives almost left us without a border. 5 million came, 3/4 not to work. When I was Minister for Immigration in late 2022, I fought colossal fights for reductions in legal migration alongside Suella Braverman. There were 23 people in cabinet back then. Just 1 or 2 others were with us. Most of the party ultimately wanted what they viewed as cheap labour. And it's the same on illegal migration. Blair enshrined the ECHR into British law. He put the so-called human rights of illegal migrants, of terrorists, of criminals, above our national security. But so did the last Conservative government. I will never forget, attending a cabinet meeting in Downing Street, where a plan to stop the boats was signed off. But everyone, to a man and a woman round that table, knew in their hearts it was not going to work. Some even joked about it. I left Downing Street that night, resolved to resign from the cabinet. And I've never forgotten that. And it isn't just immigration. Let me be very clear. In 2008, Miliband legislated that we put major cuts to our emissions above having cheap and reliable energy in our country. For the poorest, for our heavy industry, for each and every business in our land. What did the Conservative Party do? It didn't just keep and execute his plan, it doubled down on it with insane net zero targets. And now, Ed Miliband is back, and he's gladly picked it up again. Immediately after the last election, I said, I think more than anybody else in the Conservative Party, the truth about the last Conservative government. The day after the general election, I said the Conservative Party had failed in government, that there was hardly a principle they didn't betray. Hard taxes? They were left at a 70-year high. Sound money? Well, the debt tripled. Defence? Utterly hollowed out. Work should pay? Welfare exploded. Law and order? Prisons overflowed. In betraying its principles, the Conservative Party betrayed its voters, its members, and the men and women who elect me in Newark and Nottinghamshire. And let's be very clear with ourselves. This didn't just happen. It wasn't bad luck. It's because over time, most of the party in Westminster lost its way. The principles were betrayed because a critical mass don't believe in those principles at all. After the last election, I hoped, like others, that the Conservative Party would change, reckon with our mistakes, with humility, that it would repent. I said this after the election, and I fought for it. I fought for it every day. That's why I stood to be leader of the Conservative Party. That's why I picked myself up the day after I lost the leadership of the Conservative Party and kept fighting, because I hoped that it would be possible. But over the last year, I've realised that I was naive. It hasn't happened. Most of the Conservative Party in Westminster are in denial, or worse, they're being dishonest about what the party's done. At a recent shadow cabinet debate, a conversation broke out. The question was put to the group, is Britain broken? I said instinctively, it's broken. Almost everyone said, it's not broken. And we were told, that is the party line. A few had a third position. It is broken, but we can't say so, because the Conservative Party broke it. If they won't admit publicly to you, the British people, what they broke, what possible faith can you have in them to fix it? The Conservative Party in Westminster isn't sorry, it doesn't get it, it hasn't changed, it won't change, it can't change. Now, the people I'm about to mention are all decent people. But because I'm here today, I need to explain myself. I owe that to you, the public, and to the people who elect me. Look at the top table. The Shadow Chancellor, Mel Stride, has rightly attacked Labour for hiking taxes to fund more scrounging. But there's just one problem. He was the Cabinet Minister who oversaw the explosion of the welfare bill. And it was him who blocked the reforms that are needed. Priti Patel, the Shadow Foreign Secretary, created the very migration system that enabled 5 million migrants to come here, the greatest failure of any British government in the post-war period. When asked about this last year, she defended her actions. She doesn't believe she did anything wrong. Now look, I respect Kemi, but I don't trust the Conservative Party on immigration. Just 2 current Conservative MPs voted with me against the fraudulent plan to stop the boats. 2 out of all the Conservative Party. Last year, I said the rape gang disgrace was in part because people with medieval attitudes towards women and girls had been allowed into our country. Would you believe it? Several Conservative MPs complained about me for speaking out. They said I was wrong, and I shouldn't be saying that about the record of the last Conservative government. Over Christmas, I instinctively saw the news that the anti-British, anti-Semitic terrorist sympathiser, El Fatah, coming here to live in our country and enjoy the generosity of our people was wrong, and I spoke out against it. Let me tell you, several figures in the Conservative Party were angry at me. They said, and I quote, it exposed the party to criticism for having granted him citizenship in 2021. The fact is the Conservative Party is so compromised that it cannot speak for the country. It cannot oppose Labour's madness. It is not fit for purpose. So yes, I'm glad Kemi has made getting rid of the rule of European judges Conservative Party policy. But I know better than anybody else, from the leadership campaign, at least 2/3 of Conservative MPs oppose this. They told me that. Privately, some of them said so publicly. There have been no Damascene conversions. There's not a traffic jam on the road to Damascus. Over the last few weeks, in meetings and in calls, I told Kemi and her team what I've told you all today. The Conservative Party needed to change fundamentally, starting by acknowledging the state of Britain and owning up to the role we played in getting Britain to this point. I respect Kemi, but on all those issues, we were in different places. Let me be clear, they've doubled down. I can't kid myself anymore. The party hasn't changed, and it won't. The bulk of the party don't get it. They don't have the stomach for the radical change that Britain needs. In opposition, it's easy to paper over these cracks. But the divisions, the delusions are still there. And if we don't get the next government right, Britain will likely slip beyond the point of repair. Everything is on this. Everything is on this decision. I can't, in good conscience, stick with a party that's failed so badly, that isn't sorry, that hasn't changed, that I know in my heart can't deliver what's needed. That is why I resolved to leave. Because Nigel has stood consistently and very often alone for what's needed. Ending mass migration, for cheap energy, for cutting waste and taxes and red tape. Now, I don't agree with everything that he's ever said, and he definitely won't have agreed with everything that I've ever said. But in retrospect, I see that in this period, when two main parties were failing Britain, Nigel was all too often a lone voice of common sense. When the first boat started crossing, who was in the channel saying that it was outrageous? They laughed at him. Well, they're not laughing now. Nigel has stood for the real change that we need now as a country for over a decade, frankly, for most of my adult lifetime. If anyone puts party allegiance, personal ambition to one side, he is obviously the right person to lead the movement for change Britain needs. Recognising the situation our country is in, I reached out to Nigel in September. I could see then the Conservative Party wasn't changing, couldn't fix Britain. I didn't know that I was going to defect. In fact, we didn't discuss that. I just knew the responsible thing to do, the honest thing to do for me, was to explore all options. From the conversations that we've had since, quietly, and from what I've seen Nigel and Richard and Zia and Lee and Danny and Sarah say and do publicly, I am convinced that Nigel and Reform will deliver the real change we need. Nigel knows, Reform knows, the extraordinary challenges that Britain faces require a comprehensive plan to turn our country around. That'll be a major priority for this year. As Nigel has said, we will set out to build and recruit the team needed to execute that plan. Yes, a few people will come from parties who have realised that those parties have lost their way, who unquestionably back the real change the Reform will bring. But far more importantly, people will come from outside of politics, people who've done great things in business, in our schools, in our hospitals, our prisons, our armed forces, people the two political parties have locked out and ignored for far too long. For all those reasons, today, I'm proud to join the more than 270,000 people who are members of Reform UK, to back Nigel, to join this incredible movement, a national movement that will pool Britain's talents, experience and expertise, put previous differences to one side and deliver the real change we need. Turn our country around. At this hour, with Britain on the brink, in real danger, this is what we must do. If you agree with us, don't sit on the sidelines. Britain is broken. Britain needs reform. And reform needs you. Thank you all very much indeed.
So, Robert Jenrick and Nigel Farage shaking hands after that extraordinary speech where Robert Jenrick says both Labour and the Conservatives, the party he was in until this morning, broke Britain. They're going to take questions now. We're just getting the audio from what Nigel Farage is saying there. We'll bring that to it to
make a very, very big change. Now, unsurprisingly, we have a list of questions. We're going to begin with Chris Mason, BBC News.
Thank you both. Chris Mason, BBC News. Just clear a few things up for us. When did you resolve to make this move? Because your new party leader was saying that perhaps it's recently...
Can't quite hear the question, but Chris Mason from the BBC is asking when Robert Jenrick decided to leave the Conservatives, as far as I can make out there.
So, precisely when did you make that jump, particularly given how scathing you've just been of former colleagues that you were sitting around the shadow cabinet table with just yesterday, and so address their argument that says that this is a spectacular act of treachery. And to you, Mr Farage, the critique has become familiar with the pattern of defections that reform is becoming in the eyes of some Conservative 2.0. Given you've just recruited yet another former Conservative and yet another former Conservative minister who was in a government that was spectacularly thrown out by the British people, convince our audience that you're not becoming Conservative 2.0, because that's increasingly what it looks like, isn't it?
Well, I mean, the one thing Robert Jenrick has done, he's actually said in the last few weeks that he's ashamed that Al-Fatah got citizenship back in 2021. It's funny how a lot of roads lead back to James Cleverly, but hey. And he said, you know, he literally, you know, he's in sackcloth and ashes over what they did. Why do I trust him and not many of the others? Because he resigned from the government over this, knowing that Rwanda was a farce, all the while we were stuck within the ECHR. And that was the moment at which I thought, this guy actually has changed. You know, before that, we'd have disagreed, you know, a decade ago on many, many things. We are, by the way, there are plenty that want to come that we don't want, but we're bringing people who can add. And I've said to you already, if people want to come, they better let me know soon, because after May the 7th, the doors are closed. Doors for defections are closed after May the 7th. May the 7th is this vital, pivotal, most important electoral moment between now and the next general election. And you might have seen yesterday, Chris, that a Green councillor joined us, and there'll be a well-known Labour figure that joins us next week. So it isn't just Conservatives, but the reality is that we are replacing the Conservative Party as the opposition to the Labour government in this country.
Very good. Well, Chris, let me answer your question. Look, I gave this a great deal of thought, as you'd expect. This is a party that I joined when I was 16 years of age, just after the 1997 general election. And believe me, there weren't many Tories in Wolverhampton in 1997. And I've stood by the party ever since, through good times and bad. And I've been on a journey that a lot of people in the country have been on, frankly, where they've seen over time the failures of Labour and Conservative, the country progressively getting into a worse and worse situation. I walked into a Home Office in the autumn of 2022 that was in ashes, that literally could not deliver the most basic function of the British state, securing our borders. And I worked as hard as I could to improve that situation. When I lost faith in the Conservative government and the Prime Minister, I resigned. The only person who resigned on principle from the last Conservative government. And then after the last general election, I made an argument to the Conservative Party, and in some respects haven't stopped making that argument, that it failed the country, that it needed to be painfully honest about the mistakes that it had made, to really show to the public that it was sincere in that, and then to set out the serious answers to the big challenges that face our country right now. Over time, I've come to the painful conclusion to me that the Conservative Party is not sorry, or at least many in Westminster are not sorry, can't change and won't change, and that I would be letting down the people that I represent in Newark and the country, frankly, if I put my own personal ambition. Do I want to be leader of the Conservative Party? Do I want to sit around the shadow cabinet table above the most important thing to me and to everyone else, which is how do we get rid of this failed Labour government, and how do we replace it with a government that can actually fix this country and turn things around for my children, my grandchildren and my constituents? And yes, I have resolved to do that. I resolved to do that some time ago. And I came to the conclusion that everyone who shares my conviction has to put aside personal loyalties, has to put aside party political considerations, and get behind Nigel. Because after the next general election, the choice is going to be this: Starmer, or whichever non-entity replaces him, or Nigel Farage. And it does not take me one blink of an eyelid to say to you that I want Nigel to be our Prime Minister after the next general election. That is the only way we will save our country. And so patriotic people who share my views have to rally behind Nigel and reform right now.
Right at the moment, Rob is favourite to be the next Conservative leader.
Well, I'm not sure about that right now.
Well, you were this morning, after the May the 7th catastrophe. I don't think most journalists in the room have understood what May the 7th actually means for the Conservative Party, and interestingly, for the Labour Party as well. And he's given up that opportunity to come and do this, and I'm thrilled. Christopher Hope, GB News.
Chris Hope, GB News. To Robert Jenrick first. What's the deal? Politics is about deals. Have you been promised a job by Nigel Farage, maybe shadow chancellor in your party? And how are you feeling? You sound emotional. I remember you campaigning in Newark against against Nigel Farage back then in UKIP. I mean, it's a big political journey you've been on. How are you feeling today? And to Nigel Farage, to you, how should Reform voters trust you? You're bringing in these senior Tories from a party you spent years attacking. Are you losing trust by doing this?
Well, Chris, let me go first. Nothing has been offered. I've joined this party as the 270-something thousandth member, and I'm proud to do so, and to work not just with Nigel, but with a set of people I've come to know over a period of time, some for a very long time, like my constituency neighbour Lee Anderson, others like Richard and Sarah and Zia, I see Layla over there, who have built this party from nothing. And I'm just here to play my part, to lend my support and experience to making it the greatest success that it possibly can be for the sake of the country. Yes, it's a sad day for me to leave a party that I've been a part of for so long. It's sad also because I know there are very good people within the Conservative Party. There are good members of Parliament. There are good councillors. There are good members of the party. More than anyone in the current Conservative Party, I went around the country meeting them. Last year, I did over 100 events. I met more Conservative Party members than anyone. I know their views. I know their frustrations, not just with the state of the party, but above all with the state of the country. And so my message to them is Reform is here for anyone who shares this conviction that the country needs to be fixed and turned around. And we can't let party loyalty get in the way of fixing our country. That's what really matters.
I believe today's a big day, Chris, in the realignment of the genuine centre-right of this country. I think Rob Cumming will bring a lot more people and voters to us. I think this is actually a very big moment. And that's why we talked about it for a long time. And as I say, going back perhaps a little bit to Chris Mason's question earlier, we'd agreed in principle this would happen, but it wasn't going to happen today or tomorrow or next week, and it might not have happened because deals, all the time in life you talk about deals, they either come to fruition for a variety of reasons or they don't. He will be joining our frontline team. You will see over the course of the next few weeks, jobs are allocated to very senior people within the party. It's part of our evolution, part of our structure, part of what we're going to be presenting to the public. And what does he bring to us? Frontline experience. Our biggest weakness is we haven't had people who've actually been there, in Cabinet, in Number 10, understand how these things work, understand, frankly, what some of the barriers. So understanding how the system works, maybe understanding why the system doesn't work, because they've seen it at first hand. So they bring experience. And in policy terms, there is no question that Jenrick and I are on exactly the same page on virtually everything. Today, if not always, in the past. Thank you. Rob Powell, Sky News. Getting a bit warm in here.
Hi, thank you, Rob Powell, Sky News. Mr. Jenrick, you've said it's the honour of your life to serve the people of Newark. Your association says that you've betrayed them today. If you respect your constituents so much, why not call a by-election and stand as a Reform candidate? And Mr. Farage, I think by my count, Robert Jenrick's the 7th member of Boris Johnson's government to join your party in recent months. You say you're a new reforming force in politics. how can you claim that if, by your own definition, you're bringing in so many people that cause the mess you're trying to clear up?
The five-star movement in Italy, launched by Beppe Grillo, the famous Italian comedian, and I served with his people in the European Parliament. He said, we will only have people standing for Parliament who have never been involved in politics at any level ever. And they got lots of votes and lots of MPs. And they went into coalition government. And guess what happened? It was a complete catastrophe because no one knew what to do. And I am proud of the fact that we're going to have candidates standing from all walks of life, all different disciplines. Very, very few what you would consider professional politicians. But we have to have some. We've even seen it in our county councils. You know, Richard's been going around the country. Lancashire, for example, we have a guy who'd run a district council for years, knows what he's doing. He was able to go into Lancashire County, get a grip of it on day one, whereas for others, it's taking a bit longer. If we win the next general election, the public won't give us very long. The public will say, you guys are the last chance saloon. Yeah. Unless you guys can get control of our borders, unless you guys can start gripping the issues that really affect our lives, you know, we'll lose faith in you, perhaps very, very quickly. So we need the experience, and I think that's absolutely vital.
Well, and to your point, Rob, I haven't seen whatever this central office press release is that you're referring to, but look, I don't intend to call a by-election, but I'll say this to you. I was elected at the last general election against every poll, all the MRP polls and whatever that journalists like yourself were putting out. And that, I believe, was because my constituents knew that I stood up for them. I was willing to do things which are difficult, sometimes be very independent-minded. They respected the fact that I had resigned from the last Conservative government. In fact, there were a lot of Reform voters in Newark who decided to bite their tongue and not vote Reform and to vote for me at the last general election precisely because of that. And my constituents know that I'll continue to do that, to be the strongest possible voice for them and for the issues that they care about. And, above all, to hold this failing Labour government to account. The thing that unites most people in my constituency is this. They want Starmer out, and they want a good government in that's going to fix our country. And I am convinced that this is the only way that we can achieve that, and I must play my part in that.
Shihab Khan, ITV News.
Shihab Khan, ITV News. Robert Jenrick, my first question is to you. You've been very scathing of your previous colleagues. You've said that the Conservative Party contributed to the breaking of Britain, yet in that period you served in a number of roles. You were Housing Secretary, you were a Health Minister, you were an Immigration Minister, you were in the Treasury. My question to you is, did you contribute with your actions and did you play a part in what you say is the breaking of Britain? And Nigel Farage, my question to you is, the man sitting next to you is clearly very ambitious. He ran to be leader of the Conservative Party. Can you trust that he doesn't want to be leader?
I think we've just given away the idea of being leader of a political party, if I may say that. Look, no one joins Reform unless they believe that Nigel Farage is the best man, not just to lead this party, but to lead our country. That is why I've done this. That's why I've put aside my own personal ambition, whatever the bookies say about being leader of the Tory party. I've done it because I think Nigel is the man to lead this country. And I'm going to work every day for the next 3.5 years, or whenever the general election is, it may come sooner than that, to make sure that happens.
Thank you. Gary Gibbon, Channel 4 News.
Thank you very much. Do you think, Robert Jenrick, this is an inflection point for the Conservative Party, that if you'd become leader, first attempt or even a second attempt if that had happened, there might have been a pre-election pact, a possibility of that with Reform. The chances of that are now zero. And Nigel Farage, the question you were just asked, I mean, a few people have been texting me listening to Robert Jenrick saying that sounded like a leadership bid. Would he make a good successor?
Well, if a very good speech is a leadership bid, I want a lot more of them.
Yeah, Nigel will speak for himself and for the party, but I don't believe there is likely to be or should be a pact or a deal with the Conservative Party. The message I've just delivered to you today is that I think the Conservative Party has failed to understand the mistakes that it made, has not repented for that. Why would anyone in this country hand the keys back to these people to take it forward and hope that they would fix the country. That is my painful conclusion of the last few years. And to your point about, or the point that was made a moment ago about, my own record, look, I think the Conservative Party failed in government. Nobody has been more honest about that than myself. There were battles that I fought to build more homes, let down by Boris Johnson, to get immigration down, let down by Rishi Sunak. But did I contribute to mistakes? I'm very open and honest to say, yes, I did. That's why we've got to make sure this never happens again. And I believe reform is the best way to ensure that doesn't happen and we can actually fix the country.
I thought your story about the recent shadow cabinet meeting was very revealing. You know, they debate, is Britain broken? A couple say yes. Most say, good Lord, no, everything's absolutely marvellous. And then some say, well, we can't admit it because we actually contributed to it. And so I'm actually, yes, I am prepared to accept those who put their hands up and say we failed. And bear in mind, Gary, I put a level of trust in the Conservative Party back in 2019 at that election. And I, like many millions of others in Britain, feel betrayed by them. And you only do deals, you only shake hands with people you trust. And we are going to replace them. And they will cease to be, I repeat, a national political party after May the 7th this year. Just you watch.
And if I may say on your question about an inflection point, I do think we are at an inflection point. Perhaps a slightly different one to the one that you were suggesting, but there are many millions of people in this country who voted Conservative at the last general election. They were often doing so through gritted teeth. Perhaps it was a force of habit. Perhaps they hoped that the Conservative Party would learn its lessons and change. My message to those people is you need to rally behind Nigel and reform now, because it is the only way we will get rid of this failing Labour government, and it is the only way that we'll get in a government that is capable, has the will and determination to actually fix the country. And that, I'm afraid, does mean the end of the Conservative Party. It means people who share our values coming together to support this man and to make sure that he's our next Prime Minister.
Yeah, they're going the way of the Liberal Party in the mid-1920s. That's actually what's happening before our very eyes. Martina Bett from The Sun.
Thank you very much. Martina Bett from The Sun. Robert, I was wondering if you could give any more details on how the events this morning unfolded. How did you get caught? Tory party chairman Kevin Holyroke says that it was someone of your inner circle that sold you out. Who was it? Any details on that would be good. Thank you.
Look, honestly, I'm not in the slightest bit interested in who might have said this or that. Why don't you go and ask Kevin Holyroke or Kemi Badenoch what they have heard on the grapevine? No one does this lightly. I've been a member of this party since I was 16 years of age. I woke up this morning as the Conservative Home Poll's most popular shadow cabinet member, exactly. The bookie's favourite to be the next leader of the Conservative Party. Do you think you do this lightly? No. I did this having given it the greatest thought about what I think was best, not just for me personally, but actually for the country. And that is what matters today. How do we ensure that we fix our country? And there may be some people in politics, many in the present Conservative Party, who don't think Britain is broken, who think that everything's going to be all right. I don't think that. And I would be letting down the men and women that I represent if I said to them, you've had 2 or 3 lost decades where your wages have stagnated, your kids can't get on the housing ladder, the NHS and our public services are failing, migration is through the roof, crime is getting worse and worse on the streets. But you know what? I'm just going to sit back and allow us to waste another decade, 2 more decades. No, I'm not prepared to do that. So today was a difficult decision for me. It's not one that I took lightly, but I am convinced in my heart that this is the right thing to do for the country.
James Hill, Spectator.
Thank you. Mr Jenrick, last summer you called for Zia Youssef to be booted out of Reform about a tweet, and there was a whole long-running Twitter battle with him. How are you going to smooth over relations with the new colleagues?
Look, In politics, people say lots of different things, and whatever Zia or Nigel, anyone may have said, worse things have been said about me in my life. The most important thing is that we work together successfully as a team, and that is exactly what I intend to do. I have the highest respect, not just for Nigel, or else I wouldn't have joined his party, but for Richard and for Zia and Lee and Sarah and Danny, those who built this party. And I'm just the latest member, the latest recruit to their cause. And so I'm just going to do everything I can to help and to support them to make sure this is a success.
Zia feels utterly betrayed by the 2019 Conservative government. And he wears it on his sleeve, and he pretty much tends to blame every single human being that was involved in it. But I'm teaching him the values of forgiveness. And it'll be okay, I promise you. I'm just the softie in reform, you know. I mean, that's just the way it is. Ellie Wheatley from Guido Fawkes.
Farage, if Kemi Badenoch has a change of heart and decides to defect, would you let her into reform too? And Jenrick, if you had to put a number on it, how many Tory MPs do you think will follow you to reform?
Well, not the Lib Dems. There's about 70 of them are Liberal Democrats, so they wouldn't come, would they? Look, let's just wait and see what happens. Let me just reiterate the point that I made a couple of times. If there are Tory, Labour figures out there that want to come to reform, don't think you're joining us on the back of a massive success on May the 7th. Come and join us and help us in that journey to make May the 7th the big day. All right? So that's the very, very simple message. It was said during the war that if Hitler landed in a parachute on the lawn of number 10 Downing Street, that Churchill wouldn't have a clue what to do. And you just asked me a question that I can't really answer. I don't think Kemi Badenoch is going to be applying to join Reform UK. I don't think she's my biggest fan. It simply isn't going to happen. And anyway, she's going to be leader on May the 7th, so she won't qualify, will she? Right, fine. Let's go. Lucy White, Bloomberg.
Thank you. You talked earlier, Nigel, about deals and deals to be done between yourself and Robert Jenrick. Mr. Jenrick, what were you hoping to get out of that deal? And do you feel like you might have given away some of, or you might have lost some of your leverage by this being leaked if you were hoping to gain a better position?
Well, that would depend whether he was dealing with an honourable person or not, wouldn't it? OK, thank you. We'll move on. A deal is where you talk about the terms upon which someone joins, what they might be able to do for you. I haven't offered him a rank, I haven't offered him a title, I haven't offered him a position, I haven't offered him money or anything like that. We were in conversation, actively in conversation, as to what the best fit was for Robert as part of the front team, joining the people you see in front of you. And a cynic would say his position was weakened, but you know what? I'm carrying on the conversation. Now it's done in exactly the same spirit as I did before. Let us go on to Emilio from Politico.
Hi, sorry, I'm here.
Hello. I've got a spy.
So, I mean, you're condemning the Conservatives for not accepting that they broke Britain. You have sort of touched on this a little bit just now, but I mean, are you accepting that you are part of
just being asked a question by Politico. At the moment, we can't hear exactly what's happening, but there is some sort of question about the betrayal and what on the Conservatives. Certainly, this is an extraordinary press conference. You are, of course, listening to Talk, the home of common sense, and we're bringing you the press conference that Robert Jenrick and Nigel Farage are holding. Robert Jenrick has defected to Reform UK. He is now a Reform UK MP.
If people are honest enough in public life to put their hands up, to say they got it wrong, to effectively say they're ashamed, that's what Jenrick said. I'm ashamed. How much more do you want from him? What do you want, sackcloth and ashes? You know, he's already said he's ashamed of some of the things that government did. I think he's pretty much been down that path. And I want people who recognise what went wrong. I want people who understand what re-establishing that bond of trust between the electors and the elected is. And I want people who've got experience of what it's like to live, breathe and work on the front line.
It's the experience of failing in government.
Well, you know what? Most people who succeed in business have failed in business to begin with. And maybe that's something this country needs to think about a little bit more. That the road to great success very often is littered with failures along the way. The clever people recognise those failures, adapt and change. And there's little doubt that in terms of political conviction and thought, that Robert Jenrick has changed enormously over the course of the last decade. I don't think you need to defend yourself any more than you have, frankly. Well, I think he's... look, if he says I'm ashamed of what we did as a government, as I say, I don't know what more you want. David Williamson from The Express.
Thank you. One of the questions which will be asked is, the right is now clearly split, and the battle between the Tories and Reform is going to be personally bitter. Do you fear that this is actually going to leave the door open, if there is no possibility of a pact, to an alliance between Labour, the Greens, the Lib Dems and whoever else might be in at the next election? And just lastly, we've obviously seen the entry into Reform of people who were devoted fans of Boris Johnson. Would you like to see the blonde bombshell here?
I don't think after the Boris wave that's very likely, do you? And if you say the right is split, I'll tell you this, David, it's a lot less split this afternoon than it was this morning. And it wasn't especially split this morning, given the very big gap that's been there now for 6 months in terms of support between the Conservative Party and us. And much of that support for the Conservative Party comes from people who are busy with jobs, mortgages, 2.3 kids and a dog. And their news intake is a few minutes a day or week. They don't think about elections or politics. They're too busy struggling on. But when they come to see that actually we genuinely are the only people with a chance of turfing out Starmer or whoever succeeds him, you will see a lot more of those supposed Conservative voters coming to us. What you've seen today is actually a very fascinating, historically perhaps significant, reuniting of people on the centre right. OK, let's keep moving on. Let's go to Tim Stanley from the Daily Tea.
I've had a sex change.
OK.
Actually, Camilla Tominey from the Daily Tea. Can you just clear up, Mr. Jenrick, the timeline on your defection? Because I wrote a column about this on Friday, and there was an exchange of messages with, let's call it, sources close to you, insisting that you were never, ever going to defect.
It's no surprise that if you phone me, I don't have to tell you everything you want for your column, Camilla.
Well, no, I'd already written the column at that point, but I just wanted clarity, like Chris Mason at the BBC and all the other journalists here, that when you said you were never, ever going to defect last Friday, that you were in fact lying, and therefore the accusation that you're untrustworthy may be true. That was my question.
Camilla, I'm very sorry to disabuse you, since I thought you were a very experienced journalist, but politicians don't have to reply to all the text messages that they get sent by journalists. And I wasn't going to give you the exclusive news of my decision, Camilla. But if you're asking me the question about honesty, nobody in the Conservative Party was more honest about the failures of the last Conservative government than me. What is the most honest thing to do, Camilla?
Resign.
To stay in a party knowing that its principal policy on Rwanda was a failure, or to resign from its cabinet? What is the most honest thing to do for myself and the country but to say this party is going nowhere? And if you really want to turn it around, ensure that the country is fixed, then you have to rally behind Nigel and Reform. That is what I've done.
Aggie from LBC.
Thank you very much, Aggie from LBC. First to Robert, has your dream of becoming a party leader completely gone, or do you think at some point when, or if, Nigel Farage retires, you might have that dream once again? And also, what happened
I thought I got away from all the leadership speculation.
What happened to the person who...
One good thing came about today, it was that.
What happened to the person who left that speech lying around? Do they still work for you? And finally, to Nigel, isn't it embarrassing that last year you said... Robert Jenrick is a fraud, I've always thought so, and have you guys had to talk about that?
No, we haven't really, because I did think that for a very, very long time. I wasn't sure that his conversion was genuine. I thought perhaps he was doing it for political advantage within the Conservative Party to become leader. I had my doubts, but I've begun to believe since the summer that actually this guy has been on a genuine journey, is viewing the country very differently. And as I said earlier, the thing that really swung it for me is he was the only principled resignation from the last government. And when people who fought very, very hard to get into Parliament, to rise up the ladder into ministerial position, senior ministerial position, for people to resign on points of principle, there are very, very few, I tell you what, Aggie, there are very, very few people in public life who do that these days, and that's what convinced me that this guy was in the same camp that I'm in.
And look, nobody leaves a party which they're the bookies' favourite to be leader out of ambition. You do this out of conviction. I've done this today because I'm convinced it's the right thing to do for my constituents and for the country. And that's it.
Thank you. Max Kendick from The Times, please.
I'm not interested in that. That doesn't matter.
Max from The Times.
Thank you, Nigel. This defection, the Tories say, wasn't meant to happen for a while, and there was some grand plan up your sleeve to have some kind of disruptive event for it to happen instead. What was that? And Robert, you failed to become leader of your party, and now none of your closest Tory allies have said they're following suit with your defection. Has this been a bit of a botched operation, or are you going to trigger a whole chunk of more defections?
If I'd planned a disruptive event, I cannot imagine I could have stage managed it better than Kemi Badenoch has managed to do for us today. This is a supremely disruptive event. I've talked over the years, in different incarnations, to many people about joining, whether it was UKIP or the Brexit Party or Reform, elected politicians. You know, I had some defections back in the UKIP days. Do you know what? I had a lot that I thought were over the line and at the last minute didn't happen. So, yes, we were in advanced talks. Yes, I was keen to get Robert on our team. And yes, we thought and wargamed what we might do. But it's never done until it's done. But Kemi's helped bring us together. Isn't that wonderful?
Very good. Sorry, what's your question to me?
Are there more people who are going to come over?
No, I don't know. That's up to them, isn't it? Obviously, it's ultimately a matter for Nigel and the party to decide whether they want them or not.
Haven't got long. Deadline.
There are some good people in the Conservative Party, and if you share our conviction, then Reform obviously welcomes people.
Well, there could be a queue downstairs as we speak. I don't know. Let's go to Helen at PA Media. I'm getting there's about 5 more.
Hello. Mr. Jenrick, Nigel has said that you were talking about potentially defecting, but that had the events of today not happened, that may have never come about. So can you confirm
I had resolved to leave.
So when you woke up this morning, you thought you would leave at some point?
Well, I didn't think I was going to leave today, but I had resolved to leave the party, and that was, as I've said, something I'd given a great deal of thought to over a very long time, and the fact that it's happened a little bit sooner, so what? In fact, it means I can get on with trying to help Nigel, help Reform to succeed slightly sooner.
And how many of your Tory colleagues have you spoken to about defecting?
No one.
None at all?
No.
Okay. And Nigel, you've spoken about a Labour defector coming next week.
Yeah, come and join me next Tuesday. It'd be great fun.
What level are we talking? Is it an elected
I can't remember. Come along on Tuesday. It's open to all of you. It's going to be marvellous fun. Right, very good. Let's go to David at the Financial Times.
Hi there. For Robert, first of all, you've spoken quite glowingly of Reform and of Nigel today, but no political party is fully formed. They always evolve. So what one political change would you like to see within Reform before the next general election? And for Nigel, you've put this deadline on people coming across before May 7th. Are you hoping at this point to trigger a tsunami of defections?
Well, I think we're putting a message out, aren't we? That we want people, if they're thinking about joining us, we want people that join us to add to what we do, and adding would be putting the shoulder to the wheel. And despite whatever the cancellations are, that we'll finish up with, there are still going to be a vast number of elections, thousands of seats, probably even with cancellations, 4,000 seats up for grabs on May the 7th. So if you want to come and join us, come and chat to us. There's no guarantee we'll accept you. We've rejected several. We really have rejected several that we just did not think would fit. But if you want to come after we succeed on May the 7th, then we'll think that actually this trade is more about you taking from us than the other way around.
David, to your question to me, David, I've just walked through the door. Give me a bit of time. But reform has come an incredibly long way in a very short period of time, to the point that it's been leading the opinion polls a couple of hundred times now.
Yeah, no, it has.
The country is in a desperate situation. Reform is the country's last hope. The work that falls to all of us now is to ensure that we get serious, credible plans that the country can believe in, so that if we're lucky enough to win the next general election, people can have confidence that this will be very different from the failed Labour and Conservative governments of the past.
Right, 4 more. Kate from The Independent.
Hi, Kate Devlin from The Independent. Robert, you've talked a lot about being honest with the British people. So actually my question is to Nigel, if he's honest about the limitations and things that he doesn't like in reform, will he be allowed to say so, or will he have to toe the party line?
Oh no, anybody can come and say anything they want to me. The only rule I have as leader is that we have our disagreements, we have our arguments, we have our rows behind closed doors.
I meant in public.
Or maybe over a glass of something afterwards, I don't know. But we don't have fights in public, and people in politics who have fights with me in public generally don't tend to do terribly well. Let's go to Will from the iPaper.
Hello, Will Hazel from the iPaper. Robert, you mentioned Damascene conversions earlier and said that the Tory party and your former colleagues hadn't had Damascene conversions. This is what another UK politician said about Damascene conversions last year. Don't forget, this is Robert generic, this is Robert the Remainer, this is Robert that don't stand particularly for anything at all, who suddenly appears to be on this Damascene conversion. That was Nigel Farage. Is that uncomfortable?
And I said it with conviction, and I said it with passion, and I meant it.
Is that
absolutely, I meant it.
Is that
but you know what? I'm allowed to change my mind. I'm allowed to watch the progression and the journey. And I'm a bit like Zia. I don't trust any of them naturally. They have to prove to me that they are genuinely repentant. And I think what this guy has done, with the energy that he's put into his journalism, into his YouTube videos, into his speeches in Parliament, and talking to people who know him, as I've done, people who know him socially, but outside of politics, I'm convinced that he's not that same person, all right? I'm allowed to change, I promise you, I'm allowed to change my mind.
Robert, is that uncomfortable hearing? Some of those comments are quite personal.
Oh, please.
It's his politics. People say all sorts of things.
It's a rough old game, you know. Right, moving on. Dave from The Mirror.
Hiya, thank you very much. Do you think your members will accept the man who opened all the hotels, all the asylum hotels, and who boasted about it in that quote?
I was the man who, with respect, I was the man who closed 100 of the asylum hotels and then resigned from the last
said in 2022, I've procured more hotels. Mr Farage shared that same comment and dubbed you a fraud as a result of it. Do you think your members will forget that? And is there a risk of this looking like someone who's trying to distance themselves from their previous actions?
Look, Dave, you know, I don't need people to join me for the sake of it. We've actually done rather well on our own, thank you. But I'm getting people in who are apologetic, indeed ashamed of what they've done in the past, recognise what went wrong, and are determined to get it right. Are our members prepared to forgive those that apologise for past errors and promise to put their shoulder to the wheel to help us and propel us forwards? I believe the answer to that is very firmly yes. Last question, Rowena from The Guardian.
Oh, sorry, I can't see.
Rowena Mason from The Guardian. For Robert Jenrick, you've talked to us about honesty and trust, but you said that this morning you'd already made up your mind that you'd already resolved you were going to defect to reform. would it then have been disingenuous for you to have carried on sitting in the shadow cabinet, knowing, taking in all that information about the Conservative Party, knowing that you were already going to go to a different political party?
Look, these things are very difficult decisions. I had resolved to leave. I had conversations with Kemi and with her senior team over the last few days, and we discussed many of the things we've talked about today. I was clear about my concerns about the way the party was going, the failures to repent for the past, the fact that the top team was the same top team who broke the country, and yet we're now supposed to believe that they're the people to fix it. And there is an honest disagreement between the two of us. It's no surprise. Had I been leader of the party, I would have done things differently to her. She knows that. I'd made the decision to go. It's the right thing to do. Might have happened a few days later. I don't know. That doesn't matter. What matters now is this the right thing to do? Yes, 100%. And I'm going to put my shoulder to the wheel to make Nigel Prime Minister and get a government that can fix the country? Yes, every day between now and the next general election.
My apologies. Tony from The Telegraph didn't come to you.
Thank you. Tony Diver from The Telegraph. Mr. Jenrick, you've made the point several times that you've defected by putting aside your own personal ambition, but isn't the truth that you've jumped from a party that's struggling to recover from its unpopularity in government to a party that's led every poll for almost a year? Wouldn't it be more honest to say that even if this is a decision that you've made on principle, you stand to do quite well out of it personally? And on a similar point to Mr. Farage, you keep talking about a deal with Robert Jenrick. You know what?
You do.
You've mentioned a deal with Robert Jenrick several times.
I was asked a question about it. I didn't mention it at all. But
you know what you're getting out of this deal. What's he getting?
What's he getting? He's getting a committed bunch of troops. He's getting an active People's Army, grassroots movement out around the country with a level of energy and optimism about changing this country that has not been seen in modern British public life. And he is becoming a part of that because he wants to help change the future course and history of this country. So, yes, he has an opportunity with us to do something remarkable. What he's given up is the opportunity to be the leader of His Majesty's loyal opposition in the House of Commons. So on a personal level, he's given up quite a lot. And he will find working for us, working with us, a damn sight harder work than it ever was with the party he was with previously, I promise you. Was there one more? Yes, I apologise. I'm so sorry, Claire.
That's okay. Mr. Jenrick, there are reports that you were going to bring over 2 allies with you when you defected. Are they true?
I haven't spoken to... If you're referring to Conservative MPs...
No one tells me about any of this.
I haven't spoken to any other Conservative MPs, so that can't be correct.
Right, thank you, everybody. See you all next Tuesday. Very good. Thank you.
Nigel Farage there, ending that extraordinary press conference. Over an hour, 70 minutes or so, we heard a long speech from Robert Jenrick, the MP who is now Reform UK MP. At the start of today, when he woke up, he was a Conservative MP. Then he was sacked from the Conservatives, sacked by Kemi Badenoch from the front bench. Now he has defected to Reform UK. He is now their 6th MP. They now have 6 MPs, so it's Robert Jenrick, Lee Anderson, Sarah Puchin, Nigel Farage, Richard Tice and Danny Kruger. Really interesting words in all of that, especially the condemnation of individual members of the Shadow Cabinet and the Conservatives and Labour, so his old party and the opposition. The 2 main parties are rotten, said Robert Jenrick. He said we have to realign the centre-right of British politics. We'll bring all of that discussion to you here on Talk, and you're listening to the home of common sense. Talk Drive 0344 499 1000 is the number I want you to call now with your reaction to what Robert Jenrick has done, to what Nigel Farage has said. I want to speak to Rakib Ahsan, who's a political commentator. Rakib, what do you make of this extraordinary day?
Well, this is a spectacular development. I think that things are moving so fast when it comes to British Conservative politics, Peter. There's people who have been suggesting that this was a defection waiting to happen. We had the Tory leadership contest back in autumn 2024, where Kemi Badenoch did defeat Robert Jenrick. But since that's happened, in a way, Jenrick's always been lurking in the background. He's been investing a great deal of energy in terms of boosting his own public profile, providing punchy interviews, delivering quite strong social media content on matters of immigration, integration and identity. And I think there is a possibility that Jenrick felt that he was a bit shortchanged in terms of being appointed as Shadow Justice Secretary. He's probably expecting a more significant role within the Shadow Cabinet. But I do think recently, if you see, the Tories have staged some kind of recovery in the polls, Peter. And I think that Badenoch, her leadership was quite underwhelming to begin with. But I think she's put together some decent.
Well, you look at the most recent poll for YouGov, for example. Reform UK 24%, Conservatives 20%. Just before I get more reaction from you, Rakib, I just want to remind ourselves, there might be viewers and listeners just joining us who may not have heard everything Robert Jenrick said in that extraordinary 70-minute press conference. Let's just take a little look at some of Robert Jenrick's speech shortly after he defected to Reform UK.
These people run Britain as if they hate it. But whilst this government is accelerating our decline, they didn't begin it. We've had 20 to 30 years of this. And why has it happened? Because the two main parties are rotten. They are no longer fit for purpose. They both broke Britain, and neither can fix it. It's a conclusion about the Conservative Party that has pained me to reach, because I've been a member of this party since I was 16 years old. I've served it for most of my adult life.
Robert Jenrick there, who is now a Reform UK MP, he said the Conservatives are either in denial or dishonest. He said they are no longer fit for purpose, both the Tories and Labour. They both broke Britain. These are really stinging criticisms, Rakib. Will they hold water? Will they be effective, do you think, today?
Well, I think that there's no doubt that Jenrick is a very capable media performer. And I think that he's definitely tapping into the anti-establishment sentiment which has taken hold across much of the country, especially when it comes to matters of immigration, asylum, integration and identity. I think that the one thing I'll say, Peter, is that we've seen many Tories now defect to Nigel Farage's Reform UK party. I just wonder whether how some people would see that, especially people who are disillusioned with the Conservative Party, or they wouldn't touch the Conservative Party with the barge pole. Will they see Reform as an authentically anti-establishment outfit if so many Tories, especially those who were involved in the last government, where there was plenty of failures which unfolded, if they join Reform UK? And if this trend continues, will they see Reform UK as some kind of extension of the so-called uni party? And is it a genuine break from conventional mainstream politics?
And certainly within all that, and within what Robert Jenrick said, he was very much at pains to distance himself from his old party. He launched quite personal attacks, not just on Kemi Badenoch, but also on Mel Stride, the Shadow Chancellor, and Priti Patel as well, the former Home Secretary, now the Shadow Foreign Secretary. Let's just remind ourselves what he said about some of that.
Now, the people I'm about to mention are all decent people. But because I'm here today, I need to explain myself. I owe that to you, the public, and to the people who elect me. Look at the top table. The Shadow Chancellor, Mel Stride, has rightly attacked Labour for hiking taxes to fund more scrounging. But there's just one problem. He was the Cabinet Minister who oversaw the explosion of the welfare bill. And it was him who blocked the reforms that are needed. Priti Patel, the Shadow Foreign Secretary, created the very migration system that enabled 5 million migrants to come here, the greatest failure of any British government in the post-war period. When asked about this last year, she defended her actions. She doesn't believe she did anything wrong. Now look, I respect Kemi, but I don't trust the Conservative Party on immigration.
What do you make of what Robert Jenrick is saying? 0344 499 1000. I'm on air with Talk Drive, the home of common sense, until 7 o'clock. I'll take as many calls as I can. 0344 499 1000, or send me a voice note on that number as well. Rakib Hassan, Dr. Rakib Hassan, still with me, the political commentator. He really went for it with those criticisms of his former colleagues, Rakib.
No, he has to, and I think that he has to show that he's been on a political journey of his own. When he was elected to the House of Commons in a by-election back in 2014, Jenrick very much belonged to this sort of the sort of mainstream liberal conservative tendency. He was. To my understanding, he was very pro-EU. He was supportive of the UK's membership of the European Union. He voted Remain in the June 2016
he campaigned for Remain,
absolutely. Absolutely. So, but everyone's entitled to change their mind. Over the last 10 years, there's some political views of mine that have also changed on more sensitive matters of immigration, integration, identity. So I think that's absolutely fair enough. And I think it's important because he was immigration minister. And to be fair, he resigned from that position when he was a part of the last government, that he has to really prove himself in terms of criticising what went wrong, especially when it came to those immigration and asylum policies, which didn't truly deliver for British people who are deeply anxious over the unprecedented levels of immigration and our dysfunctional asylum system. So I think that it's fair enough that he has changed his views, but I think it comes to the broader point that if we continue to see it's almost like mass-scale Tory defections to Reform UK, how will some of the grassroots elements of Reform UK who are very actually anti-Tory, how will they feel about that and how will they cope with that over time?
It's a very good point, Rakib, and one to which we will return. Thank you very much for your contribution today, Dr. Rakib Hassan, political commentator, and your patience as well. That was a long press conference. I want to know what you think. 0344 499 1000. I can see the phones going now. I'll take as many calls as I can between now and 7 o'clock. Tom Jones is Deputy Online Editor of The Critic. He's also a Conservative councillor himself. Tom, this is a devastating blow to your party, is it not?
Yeah, absolutely. It's you can't really disguise it. I think it's really interesting, actually, that this has got so much coverage for a Shadow Justice Secretary. I'm sure most of your viewers can't name the previous Shadow Justice Secretary under Labour. And I think that's because Robert Jenrick has been one of the most active, one of the most eager, one of the most high-profile members of this cabinet, more so than people in the the greater offices of state, things like the Treasury and the Foreign Office. And so I
think he is probably the most effective in the Conservatives. I think he has been the most prolific, the most effective opposition, Her Majesty's opposition, Conservative politician, certainly since the change of government. I think that's undeniable. One of his videos, that one where he was challenging people to pay their fares, had something like 25 million views. Now, some of those people will say what a clown he is, or he's being silly or whatever, but a lot of people will have been convinced by that. They will know who he is, and they will, and this is undoubtedly significant. How does Kemi Badenoch come out of this, do you think, in terms of her actions? Brutal. Have they backfired?
I don't think they've backfired. I think basically Kemi's been caught between a rock and a hard place here. I think she's had a difficult hand that she's played probably about as well, frankly, as she can. So she was obviously presented with irrefutable evidence, which appears to be some kind of leak, presumably by somebody in Rob Jenrick's team who was unhappy with the idea of them going to reform, and has decided to take swift action. I think that this basically eliminates her closest rival for the Conservative Party leadership. She is almost certain, I think now, not just to lead the party into the May elections, but actually to lead them into the general election.
It's hard to see where any form of challenge to Kemi Badenoch actually comes from now she has eliminated her main rival, as you say.
Yeah, I think the nearest rival is now James Cleverly, but he's been keeping a very low profile. Rob Jenrick, after coming second in the last Conservative leadership election, has basically, to all intents and purposes, carried on with his campaign and built a really effective, slick operation that made him, as you said, one of the most high-profile shadow cabinet members, secured a very surprising amount of U-turns from Labour, which is very difficult to do when you're in opposition. Obviously, support for him, I think, had plateaued a little bit, but as you say, with his removal and the removal of his operation, there's only really James Cleverly left, and he has been keeping a very low profile.
Yeah, very, very interesting to hear your view on all of that. Thank you. That's Tom Jones there, who is Deputy Online Editor at The Critic. He's also a Conservative councillor himself. Loads of people getting in touch. Andy in Woolwich says, just watching Jenrick and his defection to Reform UK, I was a lifelong working class Tory all my 63 years. Last year, pre-general election, I joined and voted Reform. I can tell you now I will not renew my membership. I will not be voting for Reform UK. I'm absolutely appalled that Jenrick, who is an absolute chancer, has jumped ship to guarantee continuing as an MP. I believe there will be thousands like me who now do not vote Reform UK. I'm disgusted, to be honest, says Andy. Dan and Kent says, hi Peter, if enough MPs cross the floor to Reform UK that they overtake the number of Tories have before the next election, so that they become the main opposition straight away, that would be the case, Dan. I think it's unlikely. What is interesting is that with 6 MPs, Farage will now have more of a chance to ask questions at Prime Minister's questions. He will also be laying a wreath on Remembrance Day, because you need 6 MPs in order to do that. Paul in Belfast says, that was one of the most powerful, impactful political speeches I have ever heard. Robert Jenrick's speech was scathing, says David in Worcestershire. Another person says, good on him. The Truth and Reconciliation speech. Heather says, welcome Robert Jenrick to the Reform UK party. You have my support in welcoming you into our Reform family, and we will win the next general election and be the force for good and make the UK great, says Heather. Let's speak to Jill in Cornwall, who's on the line. She's given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Jill, extraordinary developments. What do you think?
Goody, goody, goody. I really enjoyed what he said. I could relate to everything that he said regarding how people feel in this country. There are going to be people that don't feel like he says, you know, but the people that I talk to, just the ordinary people in the street, in the queue, in the checkout, you know, I nearly everyone has said very similar to what he has said. Some of them not quite as clean, but they have said the same thing.
Are you worried at all about him? Have you any reservations about Robert Jenrick joining? Because he has defected. He stood as a Conservative MP. He's now a Reform UK MP. Is there any negative to this at all, or do you just think it's a really good thing?
Well, I think it's a good thing. Yeah, there are going to be people that will think it's a type of being a traitor, and you know. But I used to support the Conservatives. There have been times when I supported the Liberal Democrats. But my concern is that everything that he has said today, I can relate to, and I haven't rejoined the Conservatives at all because I can't. I just can't get with how they are behaving and the fact that no one is doing anything.
What do you think of, just briefly, Jill, we're just coming up to the news. What do you think of Kemi Badenoch's behaviour today?
Well, I think she was covering her back, if I'm honest. I think that it looked as if she was jumping in to deal with him before he dealt with them. And I can understand why she did it, but having said that, I'm just glad that he's done what he's done, and I'm glad that he said what he said.
Okay, well, Jill, thank you for that. That's Jill in Cornwall. Lots of people getting in touch. Howard says, what useful talent does Jenrick bring to Reform apart from his popularity? He is not Sarah Pochin or Leila Cunningham, says Howard. Lots of different views, some pro, some against. Whatever your view is, I want to hear from you in the next hour. We'll be here right till 7 o'clock here on Talk Drive. 0344 499 1000. Pick up the phone, let me know what you think.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk Drive. It's just gone 6 o'clock. What an extraordinary day in UK politics. Robert Jenrick woke up a Conservative, then had no party, and then at 4:30 confirmed he is joining Reform UK. He is their newest MP, their 6th MP. He's given an extraordinary press conference, 70 minutes long, with Nigel Farage. We'll play you the important bits of that if you've missed it. We'll also get first-class analysis from so many different people, including you. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. I can see the phones going, and I want to make sure I get as many people on the air between now and 7 o'clock. There are definitely a range of views about this from our Talk contributors and indeed our viewers and listeners. So let me know what you think. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me at 72222 with the word Talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. Send me a voice note, which can be less than a minute if you would, and make sure we'll get as many of those on air as we can to the main number, of course. You can send me a WhatsApp text message or give me a ring, all on the main number, 0344 499 1000. All the details on the screen there, and so many people getting in touch today. I will read out as many messages and get as many people on the air as I can right throughout the rest of the programme here on Talk Drive. Well, it's just after 4:30, Robert Jenrick confirmed that he is joining Reform UK. He is now an MP. He has crossed the floor, no longer a Conservative. He was sacked by Kemi Badenoch, the leader of the Conservatives, earlier today, and Nigel Farage has a new MP. Let's remind ourselves of what Robert Jenrick said earlier, shortly after defecting to Reform UK.
These people run Britain as if they hate it. But whilst this government is accelerating our decline, they didn't begin it. We've had 20 to 30 years of this. And why has it happened? Because the two main parties are rotten. They are no longer fit for purpose. They both broke Britain, and neither can fix it. It's a conclusion about the Conservative Party that has pained me to reach, because I've been a member of this party since I was 16 years old. I've served it for most of my adult life.
Let me just read you just a couple of messages that are coming into our newsroom. Terry in Slough says, in my opinion, Robert Jenrick gave a Churchillian-type speech. I was very impressed. Liz said, I'm so happy Robert Jenrick has joined Reform UK. It is just what they need. Good luck to them. Leslie says, I don't think Jenrick would have been so vociferous against the Tories if Kemi hadn't sacked him so publicly. Graham says, to those saying that they won't support Reform UK due to recent defections, support the team, not the players. The policies are the same. And just a final one for the meantime, Dan in Kent. Kemi will be pleased Jenrick has defected because she doesn't have an opposition to her from the right of her firmly centred Tory party. After that next election, won't even be the fourth biggest party in Parliament. So many different views coming in. Keep yours coming in. 0344 499 1000. We'll take some calls soon, but I want to talk to Nigel Evans first. He's the former Deputy Speaker of the House of Commons, former Conservative MP for the Ribble Valley. Nigel, what on earth do you make of this?
Well, it's a good question, Peter. When I woke up this morning and learnt of the news that Kemi had sacked Robert Jenrick because she believed he was going to defect, and not just defect, but defect in a way that was going to do the most damage to the Conservative Party. And yet, yesterday he was sitting around the cabinet table with his colleagues, promoting Conservative Party philosophy and policy, really? And it seems to me, and I'm going to believe what Nigel Farage said, that there was no intention for Robert Jenrick to defect today, or maybe next week, or the week after. And it seems to me that what Kemi really feared most was exactly what was going to happen, that Jenrick was going to carry on for maybe a few weeks longer, and then in the run-up to these May elections, that you heard Nigel Farage talk about the May elections regularly today in his press conference, because he knows how important they are, and that Jenrick was then going to defect and do incredible damage, as much damage as he possibly could, to those who were standing in those local elections that will take place, and indeed the elections to the Welsh Senate and the Scottish Parliament. So it's really interesting, Peter. As you know, the Bible of the Tory party is the Daily Telegraph. They've done a poll. Was Kemi right to sack Robert Jenrick? 82% of 38,000 people said yes, she was. Then the Daily Mail did another poll. Is Robert Jenrick a traitor? 3/4 of those who responded said yes, he was. So I think actually Kemi's coming out of this quite.
Do you think she's the winner today, or do you think Robert Jenrick's the winner, or do you think Nigel Farage is the winner?
No, I absolutely think Kemi has done absolutely the right thing. 3 cheers to whoever in Robert Jenrick's office decided to give the information to Kemi Badenoch. And when Kemi got that information, she did absolutely the right thing to cut Robert Jenrick loose as quickly as she possibly could.
But what does this say, Nigel? Let's take a slightly less charitable view of Kemi Badenoch. What does this say about her leadership, where she has a key lieutenant? She had a former Chancellor of the Exchequer, Nadeem Zahawi, who defects this week. You got 23 former Conservative MPs. You got 2 serving MPs until they defected in Danny Kruger and in Robert Jenrick, moving over to Reform UK. There may be more. We've heard about, Nigel Farage said a couple of times, a Labour figure, a well-known Labour figure next week on Tuesday will be revealed. The momentum here is with Reform UK, isn't it? They're ahead in the polls. Yes, they've gone down slightly recently, but they're still ahead. They still would form a small majority government, as the most recent poll says. Farage has the momentum here, has he not?
They did incredibly well in the May elections. Absolutely, they won those. They slaughtered all the other parties. And I believe that if you look at the Tory party, the public at that stage certainly have not forgiven the Conservatives for the problems that they left when they left power in July of 2024. So, yeah, you've got that absolute scenario that's there. But since that time, you've mentioned that Kemi's gone up, that she has performed sterlingly well at the Prime Minister's questions every Wednesday. Her party conference speech was absolutely superb, went down as a storm as she announced policy after a policy that is going to help the British public. And Reform has gone down in the polls as well. There's one opinion poll, I think, today that put them at 24% and the Tories at 20%. So the gap is absolutely closing. Listen, Robert looked to me as if he was ready to quit the Conservative Party perhaps a few weeks before the May elections to help bolster Reform. Maybe this is what the conversation was taking place.
Yeah, and we don't know we don't know, of course, what conversations and what was part of those conversations behind closed doors. Interestingly, of course, he took aim and really went nuclear on many of his former shadow cabinet colleagues. He said they were good people and decent people, but he made some really stinging criticisms. Let's just take a look at Robert Jenrick attacking some of your former colleagues, Nigel, and then I'll get your reaction.
Now, the people I'm about to mention are all decent people. But because I'm here today, I need to explain myself. I owe that to you, the public, and to the people who elect me. Look at the top table. The Shadow Chancellor, Mel Stride, has rightly attacked Labour for hiking taxes to fund more scrounging. But there's just one problem. He was the cabinet minister who oversaw the explosion of the welfare bill. And it was him who blocked the reforms that are needed. Priti Patel, the shadow foreign secretary, created the very migration system that enabled 5 million migrants to come here. The greatest failure of any British government in the post-war period. When asked about this last year, she defended her actions. She doesn't believe she did anything wrong. Now look, I respect Kemi, but I don't trust the Conservative Party on immigration.
Is anything he said wrong there, Nigel? Is he being unfair?
Well, I'm glad he thinks they're decent people, because if he didn't think they were decent, what would he have
said? Yeah.
I mean, my goodness me. Listen, yeah, we have to admit that there were real... Well, this is why the Tories took a hammering in July 2024. This is why I'm no longer a member of Parliament. And we have to accept that the Conservative Party simply let the public down, and we rightly were booted out of office. But the reality as well is that in August, Peter, Farage was calling Robert Jenrick a fraud. And then a month later, he's having negotiations with bringing him into the Tory party.
But I mean, you can equally say that yesterday Kemi Badenoch was saying publicly that Robert Jenrick was a marvellous Shadow Justice Secretary, whereas today he's a horrible traitor who's betrayed her. You know, people do change their minds.
No, absolutely. But the reality is, and I think Camilla Tominey of the Telegraph asking a question of Robert Jenrick to say, listen, I wrote an article last week about you defecting, and your people got in touch saying this is absolutely rubbish. And yet, and he was trying to say, well, and he actually said, I think he let himself down badly there when he said, you didn't expect me to write your article for you. I mean, he was prepared basically to say that he was going to lie to her in order to stay in the shadow cabinet several more weeks in order to do maximum damage to the Tory party that he's been a member of since he was 16 years of age. Listen, Peter, I normally never, ever say who I vote for in leadership elections, but my God, am I grateful that I voted for Kemi Badenoch for the leader of the Conservative Party. Because could you imagine if this man had won? This is the 20,968 people in Newark who voted for him as a Conservative Member of Parliament must be badly let down. And he let known at the same press conference that he had earlier on today that he's not prepared to fight a by-election. Why not? People in Newark voted for a Tory. They didn't vote for a Reform Member of Parliament. Only 15% of his constituency voted Reform. And so why doesn't he resign and fight a by-election?
OK, Nigel, thank you. Nigel Evans there, former Deputy Speaker of the House of Commons, former Conservative MP for the Ribble Valley. Stanley is in Northamptonshire and has given me a ring at 0344 499 1000. Stanley, what do you think? You're very welcome to the programme.
Well, obviously, he listened to Robert's statement with Nigel, and it was absolutely superb. And obviously, your gentleman just been on, he obviously is... by what he has just said, rubber-stamped the exact feelings of a lot of Conservative people that they agree with Robert and will jump ship. I mean, obviously...
you think people will follow Robert Jenrick? They'll take his lead and go to Reform UK if they weren't there already?
Well, the MPs might not, but the rank and file people out on the workshop floor will probably follow him, very pleased to follow him.
And you're one of them, presumably, Stanley?
I would be, yes. I've obviously I've changed my mind a long time ago now.
Do you trust Robert Jenrick? He's been a Remainer, then he's become a Leaver. He's been on the sort of softer ground of the Conservatives, now he's much more hardline. He's been elected as a Conservative MP a number of times, now he's a Reform UK MP. Do you think he's someone who is acting out of principle?
Well, maybe what's happening to the country on the other side of the umbrella, shall we say, it's caused him to think seriously about how that can be changed.
And that's a perfectly reasonable thing to say. Stanley, listen, thanks for that. Lots of common sense in that call. That was Stanley in Northamptonshire. Steve's in Leeds and has been following developments. Steve, what do you think today?
Well, a couple of things, Peter. One to do with Kemi Badenoch, one to do with Robert Jenrick, right? So every single supporter of reform has defected from another political party, whether it's Labour, Liberals, Conservative. We all have. I was a Conservative voter, now I'm Reform. So the idea that the people in the Conservative power structure wouldn't be going through the same macerations is silly.
I totally take that point, Steve, but there will be a lot of people who voted for him in his constituency who said, hold on a second, we voted for you as a Conservative.
Yeah, but we've had that with every single MP that's ever moved across the floor. We demand a by-election, whether it's Labour, Conservative, Liberal, and they've never happened. Yeah, so that's not the system we work with.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, at the end of the day, we've got a government where people say we want another election. And we go, sorry, that's not the system. You've got to wait 3.5 years. As for Kemi Begano, I think she's brilliant. Yeah, fantastic. Unfortunately, we don't hear enough voices from the rest of the Conservative Party that are talking in the same way. So it just leads you to believe that what's happening is the true Conservatives are leaving the party, and we're left with the left-leaning, liberal, conservative sort of mix. Do
you think Kemi Badenoch is one of those people, though? Do you think she's left-leaning?
No, I don't think she is. No, I seriously don't think she is. But unfortunately, when the party gets into power, like Labour, right? So Labour have got into power with Keir Starmer, and suddenly the left side of the party's taking control.
Yes.
If the Conservatives will vote for them again on the basis of Kemi's a bit more centre-right,
yes,
you've still got all those Liberal MPs in the Conservative Party that once she gets into power will go, no, sorry, you can't do that. That's how we do things. And that's the fear that a lot of us have about the Conservatives. The party hasn't kicked out all those liberal-leaning Conservatives.
What about Reform UK as well? Okay, what about Reform UK as well, Steve? Because we're in a situation where we've had something like, we're now 24, I think, former Conservative MPs, 2 sitting ones within that, Robert Jenrick and Danny Kruger, who've moved across to Reform UK. Won't there be some people who'll be worried, maybe you're one of them, that Reform UK is just becoming a sort of continuity Conservatives in some ways?
Well, let's look at the numbers, Peter, right? You need, I think it's 300 MPs to make a government, as it were.
It's a wee bit more than that. It's 326, yeah.
326. So if 26 of those turn out to be Conservatives in sheep's clothing, yeah, it's not a big deal. I know it sounds a lot. Oh, 24 have moved over they've joined the party.
Well, most of them even aren't sitting MPs either, so there's actually sort of smaller numbers. But it doesn't bother you, Steve?
No, I don't think it does, because I think ultimately, if Nigel and the rest of the team promote the values that we as Reform voters want, there's going to be people in the party that end up as MPs that are a bit too wet or a bit too hardline. You'll get the hardline ones where we go, oh God, why did you choose him? He's advocating for all sorts of demonic things that we don't want. That's politics. You're going to get people in the party that are swing left and swing right. As long as the main part of it is what Reform is about, which is changing the system and returning this country to its greatness.
Okay.
I think you've got to accept that. That's part of politics.
Steve, thank you so much for that. That's Steve in Leeds there. We've got plenty more callers on between now and 7 o'clock. We'll get Henry Hill, who's the Deputy Editor of Conservative Home. We'll get Isabel Oakeshott, our International Editor. Get a range of opinions. Lots of people in touch. Kristen in Sheffield says, Robert Jenrick, just what Reform needed. This guy talks sense. Well done, Mr Farage. Paula says, what a great speech from Robert Jenrick. Reform needs to also look at campaigning in Northern Ireland. Angie says, maybe Reform are going to repay everyone who backed Boris with a mass sacking at some point. I don't understand the thoughts of Reform's taking so many Tory defections. Angie making that point that I was making to Steve there a minute ago. Brian says, I have to admit I've never been a huge fan of Robert Jenrick and I've often thought of him as weak, but I have to say the speech he made this afternoon is one of those powerful political speeches I have heard in modern times, says Brian. Mark in East Dorset says, good evening, Peter. What a wonderful day for Reform UK. I believe Reform UK are now unbeatable and hopefully can save our country from disaster. Mike in Milton Keynes says, I'm confused. Was he sacked or did he resign? I'm also disappointed with Nigel, as he must have known what was going to happen today and denying it earlier in Scotland. Leslie says, Farage has just said he will announce a Labour defection next week. Who do you put your money on? Lammy, Rayner or Reeves? Leslie, I think none of those three is in any way likely to become a member of Reform UK. If they do, I will eat my hat. Rachel says, in reference to what Rakib Hassan said earlier on, as a Reform UK voter, I'm very happy to see some authentic Tories defect to Reform. As Nigel Farage said, a level of experience in the actual machinery of government is vital for Reform UK to succeed. And the final one before the break from Claire in Kent, who says, surely the majority of us Reform voters are disaffected Tory voters. If we can change our minds, why can't Robert Jenrick? The party no longer aligns with Conservative values, says Claire in Kent. Whatever your opinion on this, I want to know. We've got 39 minutes now between now and 7 o'clock. There's loads of time to get your voice on the air. We'll hear a range of opinions on this. 0344 499 1000. You're with Talk, the home of common sense.
Some breaking news this morning revealed that under the Terrorist Act, 242 people were arrested in the year to June of this year.
Something you can indulge in as to all the people who aren't going to prison because, well, there's no prison spaces.
So this is a Talk exclusive we've been looking at.
I said, you take these cuffs off me and speak to me like a human being rather than a common criminal.
You're just left wondering, does these people who lead us actually hate Britain? Yeah. Do they not love our country and everything that we've stood for?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Stephen Thurrock says, did this sacking take place to deflect conversation away from the cancellation of the May elections? That's Stephen Thurrock there. Well, Nigel Farage did talk about it at the start. No doubt he'll have more to say on that. I would argue postponement rather than cancellation, but there we are. Nicola in Norfolk said, Kemi had no choice to do what she did, but if she thinks replacing him with the former aide to Theresa May and describing him as a true Conservative, then that tells you that she's lost sight of what true Conservatism is. This is Nick Timothy, the MP for West Suffolk, who is going to become the Shadow Justice Secretary. Just speaking of Kemi Badenoch, let's just remind ourselves of why she said she sacked Robert Jenrick this morning.
This morning, I removed the Conservative whip from Robert Jenrick after dismissing him from the Shadow Cabinet. I was very sorry to be presented with clear, irrefutable evidence, not just that he was preparing to defect, but he was planning to do so in the most damaging way possible to the Conservative Party and his Shadow Cabinet colleagues. It is my responsibility to protect our party, and faced with that information, I took the only decision that any responsible leader could.
Jason in the Lake District says, always having a go at Kemi. I don't know what else she could have done. Nat in Tel Aviv says, it took Rob Jenrick a few hours to forget how to correctly pronounce Badenoch. The man can't be trusted, not to mention sounds cartoonish. Elaine in West Lothian says, I'm really happy that Robert Jenrick has joined Reform. His speech was brilliant and that he did it now before the May elections or closer to when it may have looked like he was just desperate for a job. I also don't think this so-called resignation speech letter exists. I think they just got wind that Robert Jenrick was about to join and Kemi felt she had to do something to try and get a grip on the situation. That's not what quite a lot of people are reporting, and people I trust report, it must be said. We'll talk to Henry Hill in a second about that. If this speech letter exists, they have to show proof, as even Tory MPs like Jacob Rees-Mogg don't believe it and are demanding evidence, but a good day for Reform UK. Jacob Rees-Mogg, of course, not an MP any longer. But let's have a look at what Robert Jenrick said about his new boss, Nigel Farage.
Nigel has stood for the real change that we need now as a country for over a decade, frankly, for most of my adult lifetime. If anyone puts party allegiance, personal ambition to one side, he is obviously the right person to lead the movement for change Britain needs.
Robert Jenrick there, now a Reform UK MP. Let's speak to Henry Hill, who's Deputy Editor of Conservative Home. Henry, what is your general reaction to this? Are you as astonished as everybody else, or was this inevitable?
I think I was more sceptical than many that Robert Jenrick was a defection risk to Reform UK, if for no other reason than if you look at the history of Nigel Farage's parties, there's usually not room in them for any tall poppies. And Robert Jenrick would be somebody who I suspect would maybe steal not all of the limelight from Nigel Farage, but a bit of the limelight from Nigel Farage. He has built his profile in the Shadow Cabinet by being independent-minded, prepared to range a little bit beyond his brief. And that seemed to me to be an unpromising combination of traits, effective as they are in an opposition politician, to take into Reform UK. But I was wrong. So yes, I would say surprised. And then the whole thing is just baffling, really. I mean, when I first heard the story, my first thought, I have to admit, was how on earth in the digital age do you leave something lying around like this?
Well, tell us your understanding, Henry. You have your finger on the pulse of the Conservative Party. What actually happened?
Well, look, as far as I can tell, what I've heard is he printed out his resignation speech and left it lying around. That's what I've heard. I can't tell you anything different.
It's astonishing, isn't it? I mean, there's an element of farce in this.
Look, there is. I mean, 40 years ago, fine. Your secretary would have had to type it up, right? And maybe that would have been left lying around or whatever. But now you don't need to print it at all. If you do print it, you don't need to print it in the same building as the party, as the leader of the party that you're about to leave or any of her supporters. It's just, how on earth do you do this? I assume you've got a lot on your mind. It's a very big career decision. I think it's important that we remember that political defections from one party to another, although they often have ideological and big picture motivations, they are also deeply personal decisions, both in terms of the motivations of the individual and what it means for their life, their career. Politics is their job. So, but even so, you'd think that he'd at least have that sudden cold flash of, oh my God, where on earth is it? Seconds after putting it down. If I was carrying around a document that said that would tell my employer that I was about to run out on them, I'd probably sellotape it to myself somewhere. It's just absolutely baffling.
And what do you make of the criticisms that he made in the speech he actually gave today, particularly when it came to his former colleagues? Yesterday, he was colleagues with Mel Stride, with Priti Patel. Today, he was trashing them.
I mean, partly, as anybody who is interested enough in politics to have paid attention to press conferences will know, this is just one of the things about how politics works, and indeed how the media works, is that all of our politicians are very strident and they give very strong declarative statements about the goodness of their team and the badness of the other team, and these statements are always quite funny to read back when they change teams. I think a lot of the criticisms that he makes of the Conservative Party will find their mark. The Conservative Party, I think, has to accept that the 14 years between 2010 and 2024 did not deliver what many Conservative supporters, especially on the right of the party, the people who felt sort of represented by Robert Jenrick in the shadow cabinet, were hoping for. And I think that one of the big disappointments of Kemi Badenoch's leadership is that she stood as leader promising to have this fundamental root and branch inquisition into why the Conservative Party, as she put it, talked right but governed left. But then the moment she took over, the imperative of maintaining party unity took over, and we have had none of that at all.
So where does she stand today within all of that? Many people saying there's really nothing she could have done aside from sacking him. We'll perhaps take that as read, but if your opinion is different, please let me know. But I just wonder where she stands in all of this. Does she look strong, weak? What's your assessment? What are people saying to you?
Kemi Badenoch is personally stronger and more secure at the end of the day than she was this morning. One, simply because the prince over the water and obvious leadership rival is now out of the party, and two, because for a bad situation, and losing Robert Jenrick is a bad situation, she handled it very well. She took decisive action. She completely spiked Reform's guns. This was not the press conference that Nigel and Robert were hoping to give. And so she has emerged with both quite a lot of personal credit and having taken the wind out of Robert Jenrick's sails. So when I get asked, is it likely that more right-wing MPs will follow Jenrick out of the party, I'd say that to the extent that it was ever a possibility, it is less likely now in the short to medium term than it would have been if she hadn't acted as decisively as she did. I think that the medium-term danger for Kemi Badenoch is that there are some Tory MPs on the left of the party who are sort of openly very pleased that Robert Jenrick has gone. And if she wants to staunch that potential flow of defections, and that doesn't just refer to members of parliament, but also to councillors, party members, activists, and so on, I think she needs to be quite careful to make sure that the impression is not given that the departure of Robert Jenrick is going to mark a substantial shift in the policy focus of the party away from the priorities that he was speaking about, because, of course, those are important issues to Conservative voters.
Thank you, Henry Hill there, who is Deputy Editor of Conservative Home, that website, which is the Bible, really, of the Conservative Party. I get their email every morning and read it, and I'll be fascinated to see it tomorrow, to see what their readers and their contributors are thinking, I must say. Maddie says, I'm furious that Nigel Farage, I'm furious with him. To say I'm furious is an understatement. He barefaced lied to the cameras this afternoon, therefore his voters, by denying Robert Jenrick was defecting to Reform. Don't lie, just refuse to comment. I'm seriously thinking of cancelling cancelling my membership of Reform UK. I really can't abide that. Martin from Cambridgeshire here, Robert Jenrick stated he had not discussed joining Reform UK with anyone, but Kemi stated she sacked Jenrick after finding evidence that he was defecting. What was the evidence, I wonder? Well, we're hearing apparently it's that speech on a photocopier or a printer. I wonder, maybe I love Nigel keyring. Anyway, great move from Robert. Very happy here. The reality is seismic and devastating to the Conservatives. Can't wait until next Tuesday to find out which Labour MP is jumping ship. Have a great evening. Bye. Martin, thank you for that. We don't know whether it's a Labour MP. We're just here a Labour figure. So it could be an ex-MP, it could be a member of the House of Lords, it could be just a famous Labour supporter, maybe a celebrity or something like that. It'll be very interesting to see, and of course we'll bring it to you right here on Talk. Sean in Basingstoke has given me a ring, 0344 499 1000. Sean, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Yeah, very good evening to you there, Peter. And again, thank you for another fantastic show.
Thank you.
I want to bring something else into the mix with this current topic of the political changes taking place at the moment.
Sure.
So with all these dynamic and unprecedented changes taking place in the UK political arena, all played out in the foreground at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to add this food for thought. This seed for thought, and a further review during 2026. So let me just read this out. So this is all to do with party donations, Peter.
Okay.
Okay, so this is what we can see in the way of overt donations for the three main parties.
Yeah.
So during 2025, the Conservatives received £11.7 million in donations.
Okay.
Reform received £30.3 million.
Yeah.
Labour 19.2 million, and this is all according to the Electoral Commission.
Yes.
By the way.
Yes.
So this is what we can see with the covert donors, but with the real players here are these covert ones. Sorry, not the overt ones, and they're the ones that are really steering the ship and pulling the strings.
Well, we don't quite know that, and you know the parties have certainly complied with electoral law, but you are clearly worried, Sean, that there are people who perhaps shouldn't be steering the ship who are.
Well, I've tried to get some more information, but unfortunately it's not available. These covert donors are not available, but you can look at the public books for the overt donors, and the other information is available internally to review, presumably within the civil service.
So just tell us just come to the point, Sean. Just tell us your main concern here.
My main concern is that the money is driving the political agenda at the moment, and obviously steering the direction of where we're going. So with all that money in the background there, you know, I'm sure that's going to have a major influence on which parties are going to sort of take over and control the country.
Okay, Sean, thank you. That's Sean in Basingstoke there. Kath says politicians jumping ship. Don't forget that not long ago there was no alternative to Labour, the Conservatives. I would hope people are acting on their principles. And Margaret in Birmingham says, great speech by Robert Jenrick. Nigel has his front bench ready to go. Let's hope they can fix Britain. We'll see how The Sun is covering this next. We'll also speak to our international editor, Isabel Oakeshott, before 7 o'clock. We'll take more calls too. Lots to discuss today. Big day in UK politics. Stay with us here on Talk Drive.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On YouTube. On your mobile. And on your side. This is Talk.
Well, no doubt Robert Jenrick's defection to Reform UK will be a major story in The Sun tomorrow. Their top news desk man, Will Barker, Deputy Head of News, is with us. Will, what a day.
Yes. I mean, there is only one story in town really today, and we are going to be splashing it tomorrow up, well, as it currently stands, unless something changes.
Is there going to be some sort of amazing mock-up on the front page which involves the BBC series The Traitors?
Yes.
Oh, excellent, excellent. I saw one of those earlier that the Liberal Democrats had done. I thought
it's something along those lines, we've fully gone for it on the front page, along the traitor vibe.
I look forward to it.
And yes, he's. I mean, it's just been an astonishing day. I mean, it sort of started with Kemi trying to, pulling out the speech and all that kind of stuff, and it's just gone on from there really. And then we've had the press conference this afternoon, and we'll wait to see what happens.
Well, full coverage in The Sun tomorrow. Tell us about Donald Trump, because we've really been focusing on Robert Jenrick today. We've focused a little bit on a few other stories, but Donald Trump diverting an aircraft carrier towards Iran. What's going on there? Because we've heard even from Caroline Levitt, who is the press secretary, that apparently 800 executions have been deferred.
Yes, so when I left here last night, I made a little reference to it. We all kind of thought that Trump was about to send his bombers in. It was going to be obliterate Tehran or whatever, but he pulled the plug on it last minute, and because he understood from the leaders out there that they were going to halt the executions, the hanging. They weren't going to do any more hanging, and therefore they weren't going to. So therefore they got out of the whatever that Trump was going to throw at them, but. The decision hasn't gone down brilliantly well in the US as he's waking up this afternoon. I think a lot of people are saying that maybe they do need to push on. And there's sort of signs that maybe he's not entirely sure, because he's now sent an aircraft carrier into the area. So it's all sort of still bubbling away, and we'll just have to sort of see over the next days and weeks what happens.
Amongst all the very, very serious stories in The Sun, of course, you always have room for a few lighter ones as well. I'm interested in motorists. I mean, this is a serious issue, actually, about driving too fast, of course, but motorists have been warned belting out Taylor Swift's latest single, The Fate of Ophelia, could pose a high risk. I mean, perhaps are they driving too fast when they're getting thee to a nunnery?
Well, it's suited it. There's a survey's been done, and apparently if you drive along to a song that's over 120 beats per minute, it makes you drive faster, which puts Taylor Swift's song, what's it called, the Fate of Ophelia, into the frame, and then various others, and that's what the scientists say.
It also reduces hazard perception while on the road as well. Well, it's very interesting in the context of not even having, being allowed 1 pint. There are lots of other things that can impede your driving as well. Although one place I'd like to drive to is actually this part of Birmingham for these incredibly cheap chips.
Well, I'm about to set off there tomorrow, so you can jump in the car now, and we'll head back down there.
You live in that part of the world, don't you?
Okay, so we'll head down there, where they're selling chips for 20p.
Amazing. I mean, there are very, very few things you can get for 20p these days. Just tell us about this story.
Well, so this guy who runs it, Nazir Iqbal, he thinks that he misses the idea that children can leave school and have that feeling that he had back in the 80s, where you could go and pick up a bag of chips, a scallop or whatever, for under £1. And so he's selling them for 20p, and for 1 day a week, 1 afternoon a week. And sure enough, that sort of went viral on TikTok, and dozens and dozens of kids all piled down there yesterday afternoon, and were scoffing their faces quite merrily for that sort of joy of leaving school and filling your face with a bag of chips.
Excellent. Well, I mean, there's nothing on a cool day as well. There's nothing better than fish and chips. I mean, especially if you're somewhere coastal or something like that.
And spoil your tea with your mum, get you cross.
That's it. Well, I think I'll take that risk. For 2 hours, I sell a cone of chips with salt and vinegar for 20p, no sausage or anything else. The response has been amazing. Well, we're going to try and get him on the show tomorrow. I'd love to talk to him and possibly sample his wares as well. Will, thank you. Loads in the paper tomorrow with The Sun. Will Barker joining us there, the Deputy Head of News from The Sun. Lots to get in your copy of The Sun tomorrow, or indeed online at thesun.co.uk. And plenty to talk about here between now and 7 o'clock. mainly Robert Jenrick or whatever else you want to talk about, 0344 499 1000. We'll get Isabel Oakeshot's take next. And thank you to Jay and Harrow, who says, I think Richard Tice needs to look out. I'm sure Robert Jenrick has big ambitions. Linda says, she's from Worcestershire, she says, I don't believe that Robert Jenrick would have been elected leader of the Conservative Party, as the party has moved significantly to the left. I think Cleverly is, was and will be her rival for leadership, as he most represents the lefties in the party. Just my opinion. Jean in Southport, I joined Reform UK in 2022. I was sick to my stomach of the parliamentarians at that time. I'm still a Reform UK member, but I have reservations about some of the joiners from other parties. Generally, they were the people who created my dissatisfaction and lack of trust. Reform UK must not take too many of the failures. Very, very interesting point there. And certainly Jean Nadine Dorries, when she was actually came out and revealed as part of Nigel Farage's speech at that Reform UK conference in Birmingham a few months ago, and there were a lot of people not too happy from Reform UK that she had joined. Really interesting points, a range of opinions coming in. Keep them coming into Talk Drive, 0344 499 1000.
Breaking news this morning revealed that under the Terrorist Act, 242 people were arrested in the year to June of this year.
Something you can indulge in as to all the people who aren't going to prison because, well, there's no prison spaces.
This is a Talk exclusive we've been looking at.
I said, you take these cuffs off me and speak to me like a human being rather than a common criminal.
You're just left wondering, does these people who lead us actually hate Britain? Yeah. Do they not love our country and everything that we've stood for?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to everybody who's been in touch, including Natasha in Switzerland, who says, I think Farage speaks very convincingly and has some sincerity, but not sure he will be effective as Prime Minister. I think the task is too big. He needs a war coalition style administration. Cliff in Berkshire says, John Redwood was my MP. I spoke to him several times about why we don't have a by-election if a sitting MP defects. He always said that if you vote for a person, not a party in our electoral system. That is, of course, correct. Interestingly, that Helen says, surely it's fewer than 326 MPs needed for a majority if you take out Sinn Féin and the Speaker. That's right. There's a majority and then there's a working majority, so it's a bit less than that, as you say. Chris in Newbury says, I have been a Tory voter for 39 years. I've been a member of the Conservative Party for the last 15 years. I'm now a Reform UK member and voter. Am I not welcome by other Reform UK voters because I was once a card-carrying Tory? They need to wind their necks in and get behind the party and Nigel Farage. If they want to start factions and allow the left to win by fracture of the right, then they should all leave and go and vote for somebody else, says Chris in Newbury. Let's play a few voice notes before we speak to Isabel. Andy first.
It's probably done Kemi a favour, really, isn't it? Because we just drove home from London and we've been talking about it, as you do. She's up to game the last month or two. Basically, we think, down to Jenrick getting out there, being a bit outspoken and whatever, and getting the right side of the Tory on their side. Apart from a couple of three PMQs that she's done, which have been really good. I think she's quite wooden, really, to be honest, mate. I don't know what you think, but I ain't being funny. I think you could, or I could. I think we could both give Starmer a run for the money on PMQs, because there's nothing there with him, is he? He's like an open goal every week.
Andy, you're right in that I think Kemi Badenoch, well, I think she's probably got better over the last little while. She's certainly more relaxed anyway at things like Prime Minister's questions. Very difficult day for her today. But yeah, if you can't oppose this government and the many, many things they're doing that can be criticised, the many U-turns they've done, well, then maybe you need to get another job. I think she's doing a reasonable job as the official leader of the opposition, but it's my view, and has been for a while, that Nigel Farage is probably the most significant opposition politician in this country. I certainly think he's the most consequential politician of the last 15 or 20 years. Sharon has been in touch too with a voice note.
Oh, Peter, I just hope the people of Great Britain just let's move forward with this. He's joined Reform, so what? Nigel's right. We need experience within the party. We've got to stick together. The people of Great Britain, let's not let this divide us. Nigel Farage deserves a chance. Just think of the World War veteran Alec who's passed, who was so emotional on the television not so long ago. Well, all them lives lost fighting for this country, and my dad was one of them. Come on, Great Britain, let's stick together. We need Nigel and we need reform. Don't let this lying Labour government and the Tories, who are all in it together, they don't care about us. Just look at them in the House of Commons every Wednesday having a good old laugh at our expense. We need reform. Not one of them other parties care about us. They're selling us down the river. Our farmers, our pensioners, everything. Freedom of speech. Please, the people of Great Britain, let's stick together and remember our relatives who fought for Great Britain. Let's get this country back and keep together. Come on, reform all the way.
Sharon, it sounds as if Reform UK may be contacting you to stand for them. That was at least as passionate as Robert Jenrick was earlier on this afternoon. Let's get a final voice note from Ryan.
And I think Jenrick's move is brilliant. Fair play to Kemi. She had no choice but to get rid of him. One thing I would say, this is a major coup for Reform. Jenrick is massively popular with the Conservative base. Oh, and on the Labour defection, I put a tenner on Graham Stringer.
You're not the first person who's mentioned Graham Stringer to me. He is a sitting MP. I did ask him about this before. He said he wasn't going to do it, but very, very interesting to see. We will know on Tuesday. We'll bring that to you as soon as we know here on Talk, as soon as that person is revealed. The Labour figure who becomes a member of Reform UK, Nigel Farage, wouldn't be drawn today on who it is. Could, of course, be a member of the House of Lords or a former MP or whatever. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Let's go to Isabel Oakeshott now, Talk's international editor. Isabel, what a day. What do you think?
I mean, that was the most devastating kind of resignation speech from a party I have ever heard.
It was brutal, wasn't it?
I thought Nadhim Zahawi's speech was quite good earlier this week, but Rob Jenrick just blew everything out of the water, didn't he? He just took an absolute wrecking ball to the party that has been his political home for such a long time, and it was brutal. I mean, he not only revealed loads of kind of inside secrets from inside the shadow cabinet, and you know, you and I as political kind of figures know how much of a breach it is to do that, you know. So yes. He's breached all these confidences from round the shadow cabinet table, and then he went on the attack personally against a number of his colleagues, you know, absolutely laying into Priti Patel for her record as Home Secretary.
Sorry to interrupt you, Isabel, but let's just remind ourselves of that moment, and then I'll get a bit more reaction from you. But he really went for it, as Isabel correctly says. He went for Mel Stride, he went for Priti Patel, he certainly went for Kemi Badenoch as well. Let's just see this.
Now, the people I'm about to mention are all decent people. But because I'm here today, I need to explain myself. I owe that to you, the public, and to the people who elect me. Look at the top table. The Shadow Chancellor, Mel Stride, has rightly attacked Labour for hiking taxes to fund more scrounging. But there's just one problem. He was the cabinet minister who oversaw the explosion of the welfare bill. And it was him who blocked the reforms that are needed. Priti Patel, the shadow foreign secretary, created the very migration system that enabled 5 million migrants to come here, the greatest failure of any British government in the post-war period. When asked about this last year, she defended her actions. She doesn't believe she did anything wrong. Now look, I respect Kemi, but I don't trust the Conservative Party on immigration.
I'd love to know what he thinks about the people that he doesn't respect, Isabel.
Oh my Lord. You know, I was just watching this absolutely open-mouthed. You just don't do this in politics. And I'm not unhappy he's done it. In fact, I'm thrilled because finally we have some honesty from a politician about what they really think of their colleagues and the critical shortcomings of the party they were in. And you know, it's so hard to see where does the remnants of the Tory party go from here, because he's essentially blown the lid on what a lot of people have long suspected, that inside that parliamentary party they're actually not sorry. They're not truly sorry for their appalling record of betrayal and failure and treachery over the last 13 or 14 years that they were in power. He said it. They're actually not sorry, folks. They're just pretending that they're sorry. They don't actually think they did much wrong. And I thought that demolition job leaves little but smithereens of the party that he has now turned his back on.
When it comes to treachery, though, presumably there will be some who look in Reform UK themselves and say, hold on a second, should we be taking all these former Tories, even if it is someone of Robert Jenrick's standing and, to a degree, celebrity and reputation and all the rest of it? They may also be looking at his record and saying, hold on, this guy was a Remainer, then he became a Leaver. He was on the sort of softer One Nation side of the Conservatives, then he became a hardliner. He's then been a Conservative, he's now in his second party. Of course, people can change their mind as the facts change and as time goes on, but surely there'll be a little bit of suspicion here, especially given the rapidity that these things happened, that the events happened today, Isabel.
Well, I'm beginning to wonder how many politicians there are that don't have a bit of a change of heart over time and go on a bit of a political journey. And of course, you know, a lot of politicians are also opportunistic, and it's not unreasonable if you have come to believe the things that Robert Jenrick believes to say, well, the only opportunity to actually pursue that agenda is not with the party I'm in. He would probably say, I've not left the Conservative Party. The Conservative Party left me long ago. And what I would say about Jenrick is, and I know him quite well, I like him a lot. I have seen him as a sort of lone warrior, really, in his own party, in the parliamentary party, since he lost that leadership contest with Kemi Badenoch. You know, he didn't go and lick his wounds, go and quietly sit on the back benches, whatever. He basically set out to outshine her at every turn, and very successful he was at that too. And it's quite odd looking at these political figures that you know how this is, Peter, that you've observed from very early on in their career.
Yes, indeed, yeah.
Him as effectively as a nobody, not a big political figure at all. Much like Sadiq Khan, you know, started off as a nobody. And sometimes people go for many years without being much remarked upon, and then cometh the hour, cometh the man or the woman, and something spectacular happens. Yeah. And I much prefer the new version of Robert Jenrick. I hope that's the final political version of Robert Jenrick, but no one could deny that he has come on a political journey, but then so have many people.
Very true. Isabel, thank you. Isabel Oakeshott there, our international editor. Kevin O'Sullivan's with me. He's on air on the other side of the news. So little to talk about this evening.
I'm going to be honest with you, Peter. Some days you have these very quiet days, and I just don't know what we're going to talk about tonight. I don't know how I'm going to fill the show.
Maybe you could read out the weather forecast.
I think we'll be reduced to that. There's no doubt. But by the way, the weather has been really terrible here in London.
We haven't had time to discuss that.
Never stopped raining, especially for Kemi Badenoch.
Rain in her parade, certainly.
I mean, Kemi's had a terrible day. It kicked off where she did, to be fair, seize the initiative on what was already a very bad situation for her. But as the day progressed, it became increasingly bad. And I think the big question now is, I mean, no doubt about it. This is a massive scalp for reform. The question now has to be, can the Tories even survive? What's left of them? I mean, do they?
You really think it's as bad as that?
They are looking very depleted now. I mean, you know, there's some nice people on the Tory front bench, but is that a talent pool fit to govern? I don't think so. Yeah. And you know what politics? You know more than I do what politics is like.
Well, we've seen today. I mean, the lid has kind of been lifted on what was happening behind closed doors at the Shadow Cabinet. Yeah. But the brutality of, first of all, by the way, you're sacked, says Kemi Badenoch, and then later on, well, by the way, Robert Jenrick, am going to start slagging off these people I've been sitting with